The most efficient show opening in Sports Agents of Chaos podcast. History is here, ladies and gentlemen. Did somebody in the technical crew forget to air the intro? Yes. But that doesn't matter because we are here for all of you. Welcome to another edition of your favorite NFL podcast that has swept the nation for the past 3+ years, the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast. And welcome to episode 144. And why is that important? I'm trying to think of a digit reason why. It's 12 squared. So if you remember what happened in episode 12 of this program's history, aka probably the Podfather, and you'll be able to make a callback. But if you don't worry, because the most important thing we're here for, as the title says, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Sports Agents of Chaos 2025 NFL mock draft. You see it on the tagline. You see it in the bottom ticker that'll be going throughout the whole time. And joining me, as always, top of the row with me, my main man, my guy, the games master of the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast, American Nightmare 2.0, Justin. Zucker, Justin, how are we doing?
Good. How you doing?
Doing good. I'm doing dandy. I feel a little bit of energy now that it's draft time, boys. And of course, at the bottom of the screen, you know him, you love him. We love him when he goes down rabbit holes, which we will get a few more of those. Don't worry, ladies and gentlemen. The Podfather's fact of the week and the joke of the week are coming back here very soon. Don't you fret now. Don't you fret. But joining us at the bottom of the screen, the Podfather himself, Rick. Rick, how we doing?
Ready to destroy a lot of people's hopes and dreams tonight, so this is going to be fun.
This is going to be fun indeed, ladies and gentlemen. As you could tell by this, we are not. Coffee is for closers. Tea is for the Titans. So, with that being said, that's not wasting time. Normally, we like to have a little bit of preamble, and in drafts past, we've had a little bit more. Maybe if that's tonight, then we might have a little bit more in the preamble of this. But for now, let's go all the way, ladies and gentlemen. Let's bring in the mock draft, brought to us by our friends at the Mock Draft Database. Say its name and it appears. The NFL Mock Draft Database, which we used last year, by the way. It was very good for us last year when we were believed to have lost PFF forever, which we never really did lose PFF forever, but the big thing for us was just ultimately the fact that we thought we didn't have it last year, so we had to settle, but I like to think that the mock draft simulator was pretty good. So we have brought it back once again. We have, of course, selected everything. And if all of you want to go play with this as well, it is the NFL mock draft database.com. You just got to find the mock draft simulator. So, boys, are you ready? Let the draft begin. And with the first overall pick of this draft, it is to the Tennessee Titans, and it is the Podfather is on the clock. So, Podfather Rick, how are you going to destroy or make Titans fans jubilate with your projection for the first overall pick?
Well, look, the Titans only have 2 picks in our 3-round mock as of now. There is temptation to do the thing that everybody knows that they're going to do and what's suggested. This is our 4th mock draft that we're doing this. In year 1, Justin correctly picked Aiden Hutchinson as the number 1 overall pick, even though Trevon Walker was the pick. And Aiden Hutchinson was the better player. In year 2, Jurg correctly picked C.J. Stroud to be the number 1 overall pick, even though Bryce Young was the number 1 overall pick, but Stroud was the better player. Year 3, I broke that trend because Caleb Williams was the consensus, and I just went with what was consensus, even though Jaden Daniels, the number 2, was the better player. Therefore, the consensus being Cameron Ward from Miami, I'm going to go in a different direction for what Tennessee needs. Quarterback is not the answer. Like, I understand that Will Levis is not their guy, but they need to fill more significant holes on this roster. I mean, when you lose Harold Landry, who's one of your big defensive stars, you need to fill that gap somehow in some way. And the best way that I know how is with, I think, one of the best players in this draft. And it is Abdul Carter out of Penn State going number 1 to the Tennessee Titans. This is a guy who has such a great motor. Comparisons to Micah Parsons. All he needs is a little more time, and he can be an all-pro player. This is essentially Tennessee's version of getting Myles Garrett in a way. And even though it hasn't paid dividends to the Browns in postseason play, you've seen how good of a player Garrett has been for them. they're not going to go Abdul Carter. They are going to go Cameron Ward. It is the consensus. But we're going to play the game of who should they take number one? Who is the number one overall prospect? And for me, over the quarterback, over the two-way player, it's Abdul Carter. No questions in my mind. 13 sacks last year, a 91 overall grade on PFF's big board. He's the guy. Build your defense around him and Jeffrey Simmons and Tavondre Sweat, and you've got a fearsome D-line in Tennessee that you can work with, and you can stop other offenses in that division. So, there you go.
So this complicates things for me. Because Abdul Carter was 100% going to be my pick with number 2 for the Browns. So, and my logic was going to be Myles Garrett was the only Brown that went double-digit sacks last season, and the Browns were like about middle of the road, maybe I think trending to bottom third of the league, but more so middle of the road in the league. And that's unacceptable when you have such a star pass rusher of his caliber and talent on that team. So I was fully going to go with him. But now I need to reconsider. But as I reconsider, thankfully we have a third person on this mock draft. So Justin, your reaction and thoughts to Rick not picking the quarterback, going with the defensive cornerstone for the Titans here, as the Titans fans go mild in Tennessee with this selection.
I mean, I don't hate it. If you don't like the quarterbacks, then this is obviously the way to go. You know what I mean? It's going to be, in theory, a deeper quarterback draft next year. You're probably going to have a high pick again, assuming things don't change so quickly in Tennessee. And if you're not completely enamored by Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, then you're going to go with what you think is the best player available. And I have no problem believing that Abdul Carter is the best player available in this draft. I mean, he is the best player at his position, and it is a premium position, and he is that much better than the rest of the field. So, I mean, you could have also gone Travis Hunter here. I'm a little worried about Travis Hunter, but we can get to that when we get to the correct spot for him. But, yeah, like, I think it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I never was a fan of the quarterbacks going one in this draft. This to me has the hallmarks of a Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis type of draft with these, because Ward and Sanders have that high of a ceiling in a way, but there's such a drop off to the next guys that if you're really smart about this, you go away from the quarterbacks, try and build the rest of your roster up for next season. And again, Tennessee only with 2 picks, unless they make a couple trades here or there. You got to hit on your 2 picks in the top 3 rounds.
Very true. I don't blame it. And honestly, like, this could be a case. And I believe, Rick, it was you and I a couple weeks back that kind of like, we didn't go full in depth on it, but we kind of teased like what next year's quarterback draft was projected to be. And
yes,
we do believe it to be much deeper than this year's class.
And that was before Nico Iamaleava lost a spot in Tennessee because he wanted more NIL money.
Very, very true. But it was also for us, we were also projecting the fact that, like, just in terms of long-term projection, like I said, I think a lot of the quarterbacks in this class are backup caliber quarterbacks. Like, I think this class could give us like very strong backup quarterbacks in the future of this league. Don't know how many strong starters we're going to get from it, so that kind of lets you know the thought. All right, let me not waste any more time. Let me make my pick. So I'm not going to stray off what I wanted. I know we have our feelings about, you know, he who shall not be named on the Cleveland Browns and what he can and can't do and what he probably won't do this season, which is be good at the quarterback position yet. So that being said, if these ads would just please go away on the site, I need to get an ad blocker next time we do this. But ultimately, I thought I had my ad blocker in. I don't know. Anyways, I'm not going to change course of this. I'm not going to get the guy I wanted to. And I don't know necessarily the sack production this kid is going to put up. But in the same instance, he was unanimous first-team All-American this past season. He was a second-team All-American the year before. Multiple-time All-Big Ten first teams. Rose Bowl defensive MVP this past year. And national champion on his resume. From the University of Michigan, the Mays. Give me Mason Graham. Because to me, in a situation of had Abdul Carter been on the board, I think he was obviously the best player available. And I think for Cleveland, you know, I know there's the conversation of fit versus BPA, I think is ultimately going to be their thing. And the funny part is you can almost kind of argue to an extent what that situation is going to be. I know people want the Browns to pick quarterback early, and I get that, but it just still doesn't make any sense with how much money, and I think still 2 years left on Watson's deal. This is not the year to try to go after a quarterback. It's not. And not just in terms of the class, but in terms of your roster situation. If we fast forward and they're still in this place 1 year from now, we need to start to consider things a little bit. But I go with Mason Graham, the youngster out of Cleveland. Because, to an extent with Rick, I'm also not the biggest, it's not that I don't believe Travis Hunter could be good, but if there's a team that I don't want him to go to with the whole two-way play and skill set thing, Cleveland's kind of at the top of that list. I don't know if I necessarily trust them to hone in on his skill set and maybe try to make him do both. And I don't think that would be the way to go with the kid, but that's just my opinion. So that being said, Justin, you have the third overall pick with the New York Football Giants.
Okay, interesting. I can tell you this is not the way I predicted this draft to go.
Neither did I.
That being said, I did expect Abdul Carter to at least be off the board. So the question now is, what do the Giants do? And if you believe the mandate that everyone is saying is the case, then you're going to say that they are not going to draft a quarterback here. It would be a major thing. Everyone's like, oh my God, the Giants need a quarterback. They're not going to take a quarterback. They're going to tank for next year. And I believe it. So the question is then, what do you do to fill a need? And I think I'm going to do it. I think I'm going to go best player available. And I'm going to go with the star athlete, the current Heisman Trophy winner, the guy that fell into their lap, Travis Hunter. The kid is an athletic freak. He can do everything on the field. He is a fantastic cornerback. He can cover. You can make a package for him offensively. You'll be excited to have him on the field. I wouldn't use him in a kick return, as a lot of people say that NFL teams might end up doing. You don't want to run him into the ground. I would choose to put him at cornerback. And someone told me the best thing you could do for yourself is have a package for him on offense when you need him. This way you're not running him into the ground, but you still have him the majority of your plays. And I think it's a good fit for what the Giants need right now.
Interesting. I mean, Travis Hunter, for any opinions that may or may not be had about him, talented player, to say the very least. Uber talented player, right? Whether you think he should have won the Heisman this year or not, you don't get to the spot where he was to be able to win the Heisman by fluke, and how talented he was. 15 touchdowns this season, a little over 1,200 yards through the air, 11 pass deflections, and 4 interceptions on defense, right? Two-way player. I'm very interested to see, and whether, no matter who it is in the real draft, whether it be the Giants, whether it be somebody else, if, what is the plan going to be? And Rick, before I make my pick with the Patriots here, I'll throw it to you. What are you projecting? We know he's going to be a top 5 pick. Do you think any of the teams in the top 5 are going to try to play him two ways? Or do you think any of these teams may have a stronger, maybe pitch to him to try to convince him? Because he said he wants to try to play both positions, corner and receiver in the NFL.
Yeah.
Do you think any of these teams could maybe convince him early on enough to focus in on one position or the other, and he could still get some snaps on the other side, maybe in situational packages more than anything else?
I think that of the top 5 teams, I think that 3 and 4, the Giants and Patriots, were the best spots for him. I think that New England would give him the best opportunity to play both, because I feel Mike Vrabel's the coach that would let that happen. I think that, if he had fallen to New England, he would have been a star there, and that would have been a really solid option for them, because it gives them a number 1 wide receiver in a way, but it also gives them a talented corner to go oppo Christian Gonzalez, which, is huge for them. The Giants, the Giants are the reverse of that if you think about it. The Giants, Travis Hunter would automatically become the number 1 corner on this team, and he's already the number 2 wide receiver behind Neighbors. So it's kind of like, that's where it's like the marriage of two. But it's like, that's what the question is. What position is he more favored for first? Is he a better corner than wide receiver, or the vice versa? Because if he's a better corner than wide receiver, the Giants are the perfect spot for him. If it's the reverse, New England's the best spot for him, I think, based upon his talent, based upon what the needs are. So I think either one of those two teams would love to have him there, and I think that he would, because I don't think he would fall to 5. I think he's going in the top 4.
Mhm.
So I think that the Giants, Patriots would love to have him there, and they'd work with him. Obviously it depends. Like I said, if it's the Giants that say, "Look, you are a number 1 corner, but we'll give you some slots at number 2, maybe number 3 wide receiver." The Patriots, you're a number 1 wide receiver, but you're not supplanting Christian Gonzalez, which I think is fair, and I think even he knows that. It's fair. Gonzalez is the CB1 over there, so give him some reps. But I think either of those two teams, you can't go wrong.
Yeah. Absolutely, and it's going to be very interesting to see where he does go in the real life draft, and ultimately what team picks him, what the plan is, and if he can. Because he said in pre-draft interviews he is dead set on trying to do both in the NFL. It's kind of a daunting task to say the very least. But I mean, to be fair, we haven't really seen a guy at the skill level to be able to do both in a while. So very interesting to see if he will. Well, really, I say it in a while, in 75 years, when they used to play offense and defensive linemen. But continuing, the quarterbacks are going to keep falling here because at least at this pick and this team, there's no need for a quarterback to say the very least. So the New England Patriots believe they have their guy of the future in Drake May. And they eliminated any doubts they had in Drake May by already trading away Joe Milton. So it's not going to be trading away Drake May. Now, in conversations I've had with people, yes, ultimately the Patriots should look at getting some more skill position talent for Drake May. But despite the fact that there are some high grades and high thoughts on some of the wide receivers in this draft, I'm not really seeing it both, not just on this site, but also in general when it comes to the situation there, that a wide receiver is necessarily the way with the New England Patriots, right? And let's also consider this and think about this. This is Mike Vrabel. It's a Mike Vrabel coach team we're talking about. And Mike Vrabel, what we want to say about him, I don't want to necessarily lump him into the, in the stereotype of like, oh, he doesn't believe in analytics and he wouldn't care about this stuff. If a Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson was here, I'm sure Mike Vrabel would be ecstatic to draft them. But there's not a Jamar Chase or a Justin Jefferson in this class, at least on paper that we see right now. And if he had lived up to the hype, there's no Marvin Harrison Jr. in this draft class, but here nor there. So that being said, I think the obvious thing you do in any Mike Vrabel team is that you build your team through the trenches. You build your team up in the depth. And how are you going to do that? You're going to do that with a guy who tied for the top SEC lineman with a guy from a well-established SEC team. And you're going to go with a guy who won the Outland this past year. He's a little bit lower ranked on this mock compared to other, but I think Kelvin Banks out of Texas is the guy here. It's between him and Will Campbell, and I don't think you can necessarily go wrong with either selection. But I think a lot of people are kind of underrating this kid. He is extremely, I think, smooth when it comes to his pass blocking sets. I think he's a really good player. He's pretty good, I think, lengthwise. First season for Texas in the SEC, no problem. No problem. He immediately challenged the other top linemen in that conference in terms of being seen as one of the best in this year, and he was awarded for it. Right? Like, it's a talented kid. I think this is the kind of guy that Mike Vrabel would absolutely love. Again, it was close. You had two different SEC linemen here at left tackle. It could have been either one, but you got to protect one of the two spots at the tackle position for a decade plus to come for Drake May if you believe in him. And why not go with Banks out of Texas? The kid proved himself, went up against some of the best pass rushers in the nation throughout this season, just because of the harder schedule that Texas had to deal with. I think they're going offensive line. It just is a matter of who you would pick. And I lean towards very late in this process for me, I picked Banks. But it was extremely close between not just him and Campbell, but also this kid here that I will not be shocked if one of you pick here within the next couple selections, but Armand Membu out of Missouri. I think it's three extremely talented tackles in this class. And I think you could have made a case for any of them to go now and for any of them to go here in the coming selections, which, speaking of coming selections, is the Jacksonville Jaguars. Duval with the 5th overall pick. And it will be the Podfather selected with this one.
That is very interesting. I was not expecting Kelvin Banks to go this high. I think it's a very good selection. My thing with him is the arm length. And that's also the thing with Mason Graham, too, that I didn't talk about, is that both of them projecting shorter arm lengths, they're very talented in other areas. So can they overcome the anatomical deficiencies that they have?
They said Joe Burrow had short hands, and I think he's doing a pretty good job. Could have been the MVP last year.
So Jacksonville's very interesting here because this is the team that I think wants to go defensive interior, but seeing as how Abdul Carter and Mason Graham are gone, maybe that brings you into the third option that's there. I think they'd also love to pair a wide receiver with Brian Thomas. I mean, I know they still have De'Ami Brown. I know they have Gabe Davis, but I think Jacksonville, the one thing that I think Trevor Lawrence needs more than anything else, I think he needs a secondary option there. And, the more that I've watched this kid play, the more that I think that he could be a really, really strong player on their side. And if you know me, you know what I love most when it comes to my wide receivers: height and range. And Ted McMillan out of Arizona is 6'5", 212, can play the position super well. He's very, very smooth, 1,316 yards receiving last year. You put Brian Thomas, who had a breakout rookie year, on one side of the ball, Ted McMillan on the other side. You've got an offense that can really chug if everyone stays healthy in Jacksonville. I was thinking here of making a very, very strong play of having them draft Cam Ward here, just to throw a little more chaos into the fold. But let's not let the Cons make so many bad decisions in their sports entertainment fandom. This is the right call for them. If McMillan is here, he's absolutely the right call.
The other guy I would have thought to potentially go would have been Will Campbell here, just because they did trade Robinson earlier in this season, and while they did go offensive line with one of their first two selections last year, not out of the realm of possibility that they could also hit back the O-line once again, right, when it comes to their fifth overall pick. But
sure.
Look, they hit on a wide receiver last year too. So let's see if they can do it again. And I think I'll say the biggest thing for me, Rick, with your selection is that you pick a wide receiver who has a different skill set to the guy you drafted last year. And I think that's always a big thing to avoid redundancy, right? Redundancy is one of the killers in team sports. And I think in this case, you have no redundancy, but you still have some very good talent.
Well, you have Liam Cohen, who's a redundant head coach, but I mean, that's not here nor there.
Well, to be fair, first opportunity. So, Justin, sure. The 6th overall pick, you are going to be picking for the Las Vegas Raiders. And as the Lion King ad there finishes in the bottom right corner, this is going to be very hilarious throughout this entire video as another one plays. Justin, what are we thinking here for the Vegas Raiders, who, let's be fair, they're kind of a quarterback-needy team. They don't have hold on. They have a Seattle Seahawks Ring of Honor candidate. Now, will he enter the Black Hole Ring of Honor? Who knows? But maybe someone to trade under Geno Smith. Justin, I'll let you make the pick. What are we thinking here with Vegas?
So here's the question. Is it worth going to, a quarterback and taking a chance on a guy who you might think is your future here? Or are you more trying to, set the tone for a new head coach and a new franchise and someone who's trying to prove, I guess, that he is more than what he finished as in Seattle? Honestly, I'm really torn about it because I didn't expect the quarterbacks to be here at this point, and two, there's a lot of moves that would make sense for this team. There's a lot of holes for the Raiders. A lot of holes for the Raiders.
No, I don't blame you. And it's one of those things where you're absolutely right. And look, will this happen in real life? I don't know. I'm still expecting in real life the Titans to go quarterback number 1. But let's say we are 5 picks in. If we're being honest, because we have a strict no trades policy when we do the mock, because let's please make our life simple. Our mathematician crew is already tired enough trying to divide all the picks between us. Trying to factor in trades was going to make it more complicated. If this is real life and we're 5 picks in and no quarterbacks have selected, the amount of phone calls being made at this point on the draft order, it will be utter insanity. Because I'm not even if the three of us may not have the highest thoughts about the quarterbacks in this draft class, they're still going to go high no matter what. So, that being said, Justin, let me not interrupt your thought process and your selection.
I think, as much as I want to go quarterback here, I think I'm going to trust my best player available at the moment and my best fit available, and I'm gonna go running back here, guys. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna hit Ashton Jeanty as the Raiders' first pick in the draft. I think he fits what they want to do well. I think he's exactly what they need for Pete Carroll and Geno Smith to get this offense kind of humming again. There's still lots of holes. I still think they probably need another receiver or so. Even though I do really like Jacoby Meyer there, he's been excellent in a bad situation. Brock Bowers also fantastic. I believe that they can get by with this offensive line too. I did briefly debate Will Campbell here because I think he would be a nice fit and they could use a left tackle of the future. But I thought I need something more here, and I think Gentry is the way to go.
I love it. And this is a really good pick for them because their running back room, even though they added Raheem Mostert, still has
35. That's why
exactly.
If Raheem Mostert was like 28, I'd be like, they don't need a running back right now.
Yeah, but they do. They absolutely do. And this is a solid, no nonsense. He's a small player. Don't get me wrong, but Darren Sproles had a long career being the small guy and being explosive. That's what Gentry is. He's explosive.
Too. I mean, Gentry's got the power. Gentry could bounce off people. He could play much bigger than his size.
He absolutely could. Absolutely could.
All right. The New York Jets, 7th overall, Jets. Jets.
I'm going. I'll see you guys on the next
one. I was gonna say, wait, who has this pick?
So
Kirk does.
Yes. So back-to-back years now that Justin's not getting the selection. He had it the first 2 years we did the mock. We gave it back to Rick last year as he re-entered Jets fandom. And as he left, I think it's best that I make the selection here. Now, I'm very intrigued because on one hand, I don't want to upset Justin. On the other hand, I think it would be funny if I upset Justin with this selection. But I am trying to think of, okay, here are the New York Jets. Let's look at the roster here, right? And I'll try to be quick with this. I think the defense, here's the thing when I look at this. I think the defensive line, the DNs and the D tackles, the edge rushers and those run stuffers, right? I think this class, you always tend to notice this, right? Right? And I think most people would agree if they've done enough looking at this draft. This is a very deep defensive line draft class. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of talented guys in this draft. I think there are some second and third round gems to be had here. So if you're the Jets, this defense that we've said for so many years, just give them a little bit of support with the offense and they'll be able to do something. We've seen it in small pockets over the last couple of seasons. Now you bring in a guy in Justin Fields. What is the number one thing we've always said about Justin Fields? Does not have enough support for himself. He just doesn't have enough support. Now, whether we think it's on the line, whether we think it's the skill position. Rick, I think the Jets' offensive line, when healthy, this could be a very actually solid unit. Elijah Vera-Tucker has played every single offensive line position under the sun since he's entered the NFL. If Olu Fashanu is healthy this season, your left tackle spot is locked down. AVT can finally lock in on another position. I think health, and between Tippmann and Myers, two very good interior offensive linemen, one of them is going to be your starting center. The other one could probably start at the other guard spot if you want to put Vera-Tucker at the right tackle spot, let's say, which you probably could play. He's played everything, right? Except center. I think if you're the Jets, I think you can focus on the defensive side of the ball with your later picks here. I think you can. I think you need to hit offense here early. And if they didn't have a Fashanu and a Vera-Tucker, I would definitively put linemen. And maybe with the fact that they've dropped here, you would go with it. But, dude, I think there's a really nice player here who could help him with pass catching. Did he not win the Mackey this year? Has he not been the best tight end in college football for the season, to say the very least? I'm going to go with Tyler Warren out of Penn State, 7th overall to the Jets. Now, I know in previous drafts, we've been a little bit back and forth with our thoughts when it comes to tight ends, right? I think Tyler Warren is a very safe bet. To me, he's very much a sturdy, tough guy, played in the Big Ten. You know the kid could deal with contact. You know he's a tough physical tight end. And he's a pretty solid blocker too. He's not necessarily fully one-dimensional, right? It took him, it was a gradual build to the amazing season that he had this past year in 2024, right? I think if you're the Jets, you need to support Justin Fields. And with the lack of a definitive other wide receiver here, I think you just try to make do with this squad you have. You drafted a kid last year who barely got to see the field. Maybe Malachi Corley gets to see a little bit more time. Maybe Josh Reynolds can make an impact. You have your number one in Garrett Wilson. Maybe Alan Lazard will finally catch a touchdown from someone not named Aaron Rodgers in his career. You have a decent running back backfield. I think tight end, you don't really have a elite. The ceiling of the Jets tight end room is low right now, to the point where I think a Tyler Warren comes in and he immediately becomes the starter day one out of camp with his talent. So I'm going with Tyler Warren out of Penn State for my pick.
100% he becomes a starter. I mean, Jeremy Ruckert and Stone Smart are your top 2 tight ends over there now. Tyler Warren immediately comes in as the tight end 1. And the good thing that I like about him is that he's 6'6", 261, and that weight is so well distributed.
It's a big boy.
But not only that, that weight is so well distributed that he's a phenomenal, versatile blocker as well. He's a great pass blocker and a great run blocker as well. Jets need that. Breece Hall, really good. Justin Fields can run for days. This is a team that does like to run the ball a lot and also can have him break out as like a block first and then do a little sprint out fade. I don't hate this. It gives off Kyle Brady type vibes though, which I think could be a little bit of a question mark for Jets fans that know that Kyle Brady was drafted over a certain Warren Sapp way back in the day. But I don't necessarily hate this. Based upon what was there, I think this is a good spot to fill in for them. And you're right, they can address defense later on. I think it's a good spot.
So what's amazing is Justin will now need to consider, because he is picking for the Panthers at 8th. He needs to both consider his pick while ruminating about the selection I just made.
I don't hate it. It's a rumor I've heard for a while now. I don't believe in tight ends this early. I don't think. I mean, look, Brock Bowers was nice, and he did excellent things for the Raiders, but they picked before the Jets. If you're a top team and you don't have any holes, then sure, pick a tight end. But, I mean, the Jets are a team that has holes. It's a luxury position. If you're picking a tight end with a team like the Jets, in my mind, you're picking a glorified extra blocker. You don't have the skill set and the time and whatever you need to make this kid special. You're not great at developing players because you're the Jets anyways, and he's a good blocker. It's not a bad pick from a blocking standpoint. But if I'm picking a blocker, I'd rather get a tight end. If I'm picking a pass catcher, I'd rather pick a receiver in the top 10, in my mind. But again, could work out. Could be a good pick. Jets really haven't had a tight end in forever, so.
Peach Bowl offensive MVP. I'm just saying. Anyways, on his resume. Justin, your selection for the Carolina Panthers here.
Yes, it is my turn again. And while
you say that begrudgingly.
I was thinking, I just had to watch the Jets do something, so.
That's even imaginary.
So I was pretty torn about what I would do with the Panthers also, because part of me screams like, man, it would be so cool to give them just like another weapon and really be like, listen, Bryce, is this your time or not? Because the offensive line's not terrible. They have some really decent weapons. I like the young tight ends they have there in Tommy Tremble and Jadavian Sanders. Xavier Legette could be really good. I mean, even Jalen Coker is a young, good receiver there. But when you look at it, they really need help on the defensive side of the ball, and they could really use some secondary help. They could also really, really use a pass rusher. And the next best pass rusher that I have here is going to be Mike Green out of Marshall. Good, 17 sacks this year. 6'4", 248 pounds. He's still a little raw, but he'll have time to develop there. He can watch Jadeveon Clowney and all the raw talent that he had to develop over the years and really, I think, learn something in that defense. And if they can just keep the other offense on their backs a little bit more, there's a chance there's a much better team next year.
Yeah, Mike Green's a player that I've watched a lot of tape on and thought that he's been a really, really excellent player. Coming out of a small school, I love small school guys like that. So I think this is a really good spot for him to go. No complaints on my end here.
There's a couple decent small school guys in this draft from when I was looking at the prospect rankings and everything. We got a couple small schools representing well in this draft for all intents and purposes. So we do love to see it. All right, Rick, you have back-to-back, and just for the sake, I agree with Justin. I think they desperately need to try to develop and make a star pass rusher in Carolina. And I don't disagree necessarily. I maybe would have leaned towards one of the Georgia boys here, but I also don't blame Mike Green being selected this up and making him a top 10 pick out of Marshall. Shout out to the herd. So that being said, Rick, you have 2 back-to-back selections here. And this, boys, if we still had one more week before we were going to do the mock draft, this would be a big talking point here because Derek Carr's status for this next season is very much in doubt. after what was revealed to be apparent setbacks in a shoulder issue that he had earlier in the season. There's still a lot of reporting to be done. It's not 100% clear when this was discovered in terms of with the severity. Why are we hearing it just now? There are reports that teammates were surprised by this, that there were several guys, such as a Cam Jordan, who came back with the idea that Derek Carr was at least going to be there. And with opinions on Derek Carr in this podcast aside, he threw 15 touchdowns, 5 interceptions last year, and they were at least a 500 team with him. It's a lot better than what you could say about the backup quarterbacks, right? So this is a situation here with the Saints with the 9th overall pick, is that with this recent news coming just before the draft, do you consider, and especially in our case, and I really didn't expect this to happen, both of the top 2 projected quarterbacks have slid to this point for the Saints. And then we have the Chicago Bears at number 10, who we believe they drafted their franchise quarterback last year. So they're probably not going to go quarterback this year, and they'll go for more supporting position. So the Podfather is these picks back-to-back before we get into 2 former NFC contenders trying to rebuild themselves. So, Rick, I'll leave it to you. What are the Saints and then the Bears going to be doing here?
Shedeur Sanders is going to New Orleans. What is Kellen Moore known for? Quarterbacks that can be dual threats, that can run well, that can throw decently enough. This is a brand new head coach in Kellen Moore, a brand new OC in Doug Nussmeier, a brand new quarterbacks coach in Scott Tolzien. All that means is that they will have their own guy as the QB. It's not going to be Spencer Rattler or Jake Haener, and this gives New Orleans a really unique opportunity when you have guys like Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed coming back into the fold, after their injuries. Give them a quarterback who's exciting, who's electric, who maybe the most exciting and electric quarterback they've had that could be a dual threat guy, because Drew Brees really wasn't since Aaron Brooks in the early 2000s. Give him that kind of a vibe. And so I think Shedeur Sanders is the right guy for that mold here. If he falls this far, it's a gift. Cameron Ward plays too much hero ball for me, man. He really does, and I don't like him being the number 1 overall pick because of that. It's an Anthony Richardson type mold, and that's where you get a lot of injuries happening there. So I take Shedeur here at number 9. And I think it's a good spot for Deion to fall, too, if he decides to, figure things out and go somewhere else, It's close enough for him. Now, the Bears are really interesting because going back to a pick that Justin made earlier, I think that New Orleans would have been a really good spot for Ashton Genty as well, because you paired Genty with Kamara, who are basically the comps. That's a 2-headed monster in the backfield. The Chicago Bears need another running back, I think, because, DeAndre Swift is a year older. Rashawn Johnson hasn't been the guy for them. And so I think that, let's take a running back here for them. Now, in my comps, I thought about taking Omarion Hampton as the second running back overall in this one. I thought about it. I like his running style, but I don't think it fits well in Chicago. I'll tell you who I think does fit well in Chicago, and I graded that myself. It's a bit of a lower grade, but I love how this player exploded in his senior season. Chicago's going to get a little Scatabo, boys. Cameron Scatabo from Arizona State. I have him going high. He's a 3-down back. He is a bruiser who has incredible hands, too, for catching ability, which Caleb Williams is going to love coming out of the backfield. 1,700 yards last year. Arizona State broke out. They were the darlings of this college football season because of him. And so this is a case where, kind of in a way like Toby Gerhart a few years ago played his way from Stanford to the secondary Heisman and then Minnesota, even though it didn't really pan out. I think Scatabo's got a really good shot here to be an excellent, excellent player. And, while he does have some issues he needs to work on, he goes for big blocks, doesn't hit all of them, that you can work on over time. And again, when you have DeAndre Swift there and Rashawn Johnson and Travis Homer, who can kind of help him along in that mold and that prospects, the rest will fall into place. This is a good spot for Scatabo to fall.
So I'm not surprised with you picking one of the quarterbacks for New Orleans. And I think if the smoke is to be believed in this draft class, whichever quarterback Tennessee doesn't pick first overall probably will fall. outside the top 5 and outside the top 8. So, and Shedeur, it kind of feels like, I feel like he's kind of perfect for New Orleans, right? Mardi Gras. It's not necessarily glitz and glamour, but there's light festivity, stuff like that. Shedeur Sanders kind of feels like he's made to play for the Saints. And, as long as he makes sure that Chris Olave doesn't get hospitalized some throws next season, that'll help. But Scatterbo is just... Justin, is this his Tanner McKee selection for this draft?
No, I don't think so. First of all, it fits a need. You're not drafting a third-round quarterback to replace Patrick Mahomes here. You're fitting a need. So, and I do love Scotty. I don't necessarily know if he goes this high, but I do think he's going to go higher than a lot of teams projected. He proved when the going gets tough against the top talent in college football that he's for real. And he had an excellent combine. He is a for real NFL talent. And teams are going to recognize that, and he is going to go higher. Now, I've seen him going in the first round. I haven't seen him going in the top 15. But I don't think it's a bad pick, and I think it's a solid fit for what Chicago is looking to do now, because DeAndre Swift is good, but DeAndre Swift's not a bruising back like they need in short yardage situations, which they found themselves in a decent amount last year. And let's face it, Roschon Johnson has not worked out. So I think this kid could be exactly what they need. The question is, can they put it together? And now they have a nice new shiny brained head coach who can drop some interesting offensive plays to include Scatterbo in that offense.
And I guess if you do also want to argue one thing with this selection is that a massive crux of the success that Ben Johnson had in Detroit, along with delivering a fantasy football championship to myself and many others this past season, was through the running backs. And a Scatterbo, I mean, I don't know which one of the two you guys would comp him to, but like he could fit one of those two roles because Johnson believed in that two-headed backfield, and whichever one you think he'll end up doing, I could see the logic. I personally didn't see too many mocks where he was selected in the first round. I saw early second round, and I think if he is available in the early second round, I could see, like, this is a case of Bears making this pick makes sense. Making it a 10th overall is not what I would have expected. I would have expected him to, and I do rate. I mean, at least for me, it's a difference. I have Hampton as my definitive second running back in this class. I think the kid's good. I think the kid's good. But Scatterbo definitely deserves to be at least in the top 3. Let me make my pick here because I didn't think that this guy would still be on the board, honestly, for the 49ers. Look, San Fran, there's a lot of things that they need to address, funny enough. Despite the fact this team made the Super Bowl 2 seasons ago, they need to look at a lot of different things. And again, I'm not going to lie. There's a strong consideration for wide receiver, right? I'm not going to deny that. But I think if you're the San Francisco 49ers, you need to also look a little bit ahead of things. And I think you need to look at the fact that you have a guy who is not going to be on the team here soon enough, and you need to find his replacement. So I'm going Will Campbell here for the San Francisco 49ers as he's dropped all the way down to the 11th overall pick. He's going to get to learn from Trent Williams, one of the best left tackles that we've seen in this league over the last 15 years. He could play the opposite side, or maybe he plays left guard right next to him at first, and then you slot him in to be the left tackle of the future for San Francisco and Santa Clara for a long time. I did not expect him to fall for me for that pick, but I mean, this is one of the cases in the draft, depending on what the popular pick is. And for us, clearly, we went with a lot of defense here early on, right, boys? So a couple of offensive selections here and there, but it's closer to 50-50 now with these past couple of picks. But, between Mike Green and the first 3 picks being, well, 2 defensive players and a defensive player / offensive player, like a little bit of a focus on the defensive side of things here. And Sanford, I think you can make the argument. I was very close to considering another pass rusher here because Nick Bosa does need a little bit of support. But I think if you have the chance to select the guy who will be the next anchor for you for the next dozen years, why not? So Will Campbell for me out of LSU is the pick here. So that being said, next up is the Dallas Cowboys for us. And Justin, it's back to you after a little bit. And the two of us here, similar things, right? We both had teams that made it to the postseason 2 years ago. competitive teams want to get back to being the top of the NFC aren't in that position, especially after this past year, as of now. So I go offensive lineman to help the San Francisco 49ers. What are you thinking here with the Cowboys selection?
I'm thinking I just screwed up my whole draft board and I lost all the things that I had on my thing.
Oh, no. That's not good.
I am thinking that the Cowboys need a lot of help. But what I think they need most at the moment is probably going to be to get back to what they were good at, and that is drafting offensive linemen and keeping that offensive line intact. So that being said, as I try and figure out who's still left on the board, because like I said, I screwed up my whole thing.
You're good. Were you going to go with tackle or guard? Because I can go to OT or interior O-line if that helps you.
Yeah, go to tackle. Because I think as decent as Tyler Guyton has been, I think they're going to need to replace him. And I was torn between size and talent in this. But I think I'm going to go talent because I don't think there's such a big difference in size. And I'm going to go with Armand Membo out of Missouri. I think that's just the right pick in this situation. Big, strong kid. He's still got room to improve. But if you look at the jump he made last year to this year, he's grown leaps and bounds. He's a career left tackle starter. And it fits the way I believe the Cowboys need to rebuild. They did just take on what's his name coming from Denver, the running back, Javonte Williams. And I think it's just something they need right now.
Yeah. A lot of the success was the fact that they drafted so well on the offensive line, especially the interior. But I mean, you look at that offensive line from years ago to now. Frederick retired years ago. Zach Martin retired recently, and now Tyrone Smith, he signed a one-day deal to retire in Dallas Cowboy. Like the remnants of what was a very strong offensive line. People will make their jokes and how many playoff games did they win. The Dallas Cowboys legitimately for about a 6-7 year stretch had one of consistently the greatest performing offensive lines in the sport.
They need to get back to that.
100%. I don't disagree, and I think Membo, like I was considering him even back at the Patriots pick. I think him, Banks, and Campbell are all going to be very highly sought after in this draft, and I think those three guys are going to go very early. And I think we picked the three of them like to go early for a reason. Those are three very strong, talented players, to say the very least. And I knew where you were going there once you mentioned the talent versus size aspect, because that was the biggest detractor I saw from people when it comes to Membo. But talent's talent, man.
Oh, but you know what? I think that he could be exactly what they need.
Exactly. So, 100%. I don't blame you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's back to the Podfather. Rick, everyone knows that your secret favorite quarterback in the NFL is Tua. We know that, especially in cold weather games. We know you love Tua in December. So how are you going to provide support for Tua in Miami as they try to bounce back from what was a god-awful 2024 campaign?
I'm not. I'm drafting his replacement here right now. No, I'm kidding. I'm not doing that either. No. Nice try. Here's what I'm doing, though. This actually makes the most sense given what has just come out that the Dolphins are looking to trade Jalen Ramsey. Get quarterback number one in this room right now, and that's Will Johnson out of Michigan. You saw how good Mike Sainristil was this past year, his rookie year for Michigan, for the Commanders, rather. Will Johnson is that and more. He has excellent size at this position. He's very, very smart. The acumen there is really good when it comes to, instincts watching the quarterback. That's why he had 9 picks in his college career. 3 of them were pick sixes. He's a really, really good corner and somebody that they need. This is the Miami Dolphins team that has Cam Smith. They just got Artie Burns, but he's 29 years old. They need the next Xavier Howard on their roster, and Will Johnson's going to be that mold. This is an excellent pick for them. And the fact that he's here, you can't ask for anything better for Miami if you're a Dolphins fan.
Yeah, I was considering him. If Campbell hadn't been on the board for San Fran, I probably would have selected him. He's a very good player. He's been ranked the number 1 corner for a reason. All right, Justin, the Indianapolis Colts. I hope you got your draft board back. The Indianapolis Colts are on the board.
Barely, but I figured it out. So I was thinking thinking of the Cowboys, I'm sorry, the Colts rather, in terms of the Cowboys, in which I thought they could really benefit from getting back to having that elite offensive line. But that being said, I'm just not sure. I'm not sure that the guy is here for that. So I think I'm going to focus on the defensive side of the ball because there's a few different positions that I think they could benefit from drafting currently.
Mm.
And I think I'm going to go the way Rick would not go because I'm going to draft Jihad Campbell out of Alabama.
Yeah, I had a feeling you were going to do this.
He is just such a big, strong anchor in your linebacking core, and it's something that I think that they've lost since they lost. Can't I remember anyone?
Darius
Speed, Leonard Smith. Yeah.
Shaq Leonard.
Well,
Shaq Darius Leonard.
Shaq Darius Leonard.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not necessarily that they lost him. Unfortunately, his career was kind of cut short due to injury. But I think that he is exactly what they've missed in the middle of that defense. There's just been something off for all the good players and solid stats that they've had. They haven't really been a great defense. And to have that kind of core, giant, strong linebacker in there, I mean, obviously there's lots of things that he needs to improve. Otherwise, he might have been higher on these boards. But I think he's a solid player to fit in there, and he could really bring some aggression to a defense that I think needs a little bit of nasty in it.
Would you say ruthless aggression? Is he going to turn heel in 15 years so that we can or cannot see him? No, I mean I don't blame you at all here. I think this is
win 19 world champions, and then we'll talk about it in 19 years.
No, I think this is a phenomenal selection right here, and you mentioned it, like the Colts. This is a very interesting team, right? Like competing in the AFC South, it's kind of been inconsistent in the last 5 years when it comes to division winners, right? So the South is for the taking. Make with that joke what you will. The South is for the taking, and very much is a situation where the Colts, they're a little bit of good luck at their quarterback not being a little bit tired away from maybe making an impact in the division this year. So something to say at the very least. All right, Atlanta. Now, if I really want to go full chaos, I would also consider quarterback here just to have a little bit of fun. But if they didn't have Michael Penix, I mean, the joy of Cam Ward dropping to this point, eh? But in this situation, look, I think the offense for this team, whether it is going to be Michael Penix next year, if Kirk Cousins somehow steps back into games, which would be kind of surprising, Bijan, Algier, London, Kadero Hodge, Darryl Mooney, Ray McLeod, Kyle Pitts, that's the offensive weaponry they have. And on the offensive line, Jake Matthews, Matthew Bergeron, New Zeal, Chris Lindstrom, Caleb McCarthy. Like, you don't need to use a first-round pick on offense for this team. There's been so many first-round picks for this squad that have been put in on the offense. You got to start to look at the defense a little bit. And the defense was where this team did struggle last year. So I look at it here. I'm very torn here because I do like some of the players on the defense, like in bits and pieces. I think Divine Diablo is a fine linebacker for him. I think Leonard Floyd was a solid free agency pickup. We know AJ Terrell and Jesse Bates are the two faces of the secondary for this team. You could kind of go in a couple situations. So I'm going to go with a guy. They need to pinpoint. This is the thing. A guy who played hybrid a bit in college. The stats don't pop out to you, but he started and played at such a great school, especially the last couple of years. Now, the big thing for this kid is that I hope after games, if he's tired, if he's not feeling it, Uber it home, and we'll be fine. I think everyone knows what school I'm picking from. Look, if you're going to make him a pass rusher, he needs to bulk up a little bit more. I think he could be good as a linebacker, maybe a little bit of the pass rush assist in there. But give me Jalon Walker out of the University of Georgia, and he goes to the Atlanta Falcons. The kid could stay in state. I don't think he's going to Uber it from Athens to Atlanta. I think he's probably going to take a little bit of a plane there, or the longest Uber ride of all time. But the Falcons need to hit on defense. We're probably going to hit on defense realistically with the next selection as well. Like, this team needs to add talent on the defensive side of the football now. And I think a kid out of Georgia is not a bad selection to pick, to say the very least.
Yeah, as long as he stays out of the jail cell and the fast lane, it's all good.
Hope he's 16. Not playing fast lane by Eminem when he's
right. 16, Arizona Cardinals. A couple of years ago, there was a guy that was drafted pretty highly, or an RMOC that was pretty high, that I didn't know why he was high up. He went a little bit later on in the draft to Tampa Bay, Kalijah Cansey, who has become an absolute freak in this league. Well, this selection here, all on similar lines. I want the guy who was the number 2 player in the 2022 class, was a 5-star recruit who has fantastic natural power, maybe a little raw in some areas, but as a guy you can work with, especially now that Arizona has Dalvin Tomlinson and Calais Campbell there. You want to talk about 2 veterans who can really help this guy out? Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss is my pick here at 16. Love the way this guy plays. Think he's an excellent, excellent player who just needs a little bit more time, a little more seasoning. He'll get that in Arizona with those 2 vets there. He'll be fantastic. And it's a really, really good pick for a guy who's got a lot of upside, I think, in this league.
No, 100%. And like you said, like natural talent doesn't go away, right? It just doesn't. And you can't teach the kind of natural power that the kid has either, to say the very least. And if you're Arizona, you're kind of – it's very interesting that you said Coyotes. No, they don't exist anymore. The Cardinals are in a situation where they're kind of middle of the first round. And it's weird how close they could have been if things had just bounced a little bit different. Like they were teasing for a late playoff run last year before they once again did the usual thing of not being anywhere close to it at the end. I don't blame it at all. I'm very interested to see like what they do in real life, because this is a team like at some positions solid, other positions not so solid. So they could go anywhere. And defensive line is certainly a spot to say the very least. To be fair, their head coach is a former DC, right? And it's kind of one of these situations where Kyler Murray's now like last year was the get back year for him, right? He's recovered a bit, took a little bit of time. This year needs to be the year where you see like, what's the story here? Is Kyler Murray going to be the guy? And the team needs to perform. And if you're not going to draft offense to help them, drafting defense is not bad either. All right, Cincinnati. I think we know which side of the ball I'm going after, to say the very least. Look, this is a team.
Special teams, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, bro, come on. Now, let's not waste any time. Kicker, Ryan Fitzgerald. Okay. Look, let me not waste any time. This team needs help in the secondary. Jahdae Barron at the University of Texas. He's the second corner, mocked for a reason. Overall in the draft, I'm going to go with him here too. Like, there's a number of positions where this team needs help, and I think secondary is one of the many. There's decent players here. There's Cam Taylor-Britt. There's Dax Hill. Solid guys, a couple of recent picks. But you need that guy to kind of bring you over the top. And again, for some of my picks, I'm going for ceiling raisers for a team. I'm going for ceiling raisers for a unit. And Barron should be one of the top 2 corners in the Cincinnati Bengals if he does fall to them, if they do select him coming out of camp. I think the natural talent that this kid can bring to Cincinnati, they need to fill in the rest of this team. You get a young starting quarterback locked in on a 4-year deal for years to come. If Johnson from Michigan had somehow fallen to this pick, it would have even been more so of a no-brainer. But picking the second best corner, who's also projected to go in the first round, is not a bad consolation prize either. And again, I considered defensive line, considered edge, considered even interior offensive line, because offensive line can just never be – you can never go away with that from Cincy. But I think they kind of need to – I think the offensive line – I would bet on the O-line having more decent enough games as of this point than the defense. I think that defense needs help, man. And let's start with the secondary, where this team was getting torched in instances last year. Russell Wilson hung, 4 touchdowns on him in the first game with the Bengals? Come on now. That's unacceptable. So let's go secondary, and let's go Barron out of Texas.
Interesting. Now it is Seattle on the board, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Seattle on the board. And I'm thinking about making a head scratcher, because what I think this team needs isn't necessarily what's available at the moment. Hmm. I think I'm gonna do it. I think I'm gonna make a major reach here, guys. I'm gonna bring in some players that are not necessarily at the top of the board, but you know what? His size and strength are so good. He is an elite football IQ. He's a good player. He's got to work a little bit on, I think, his speed, which I think is something that could be fixed in the NFL. But I'm gonna go again against Rick's better judgment with a player out of Alabama. I'm gonna go guard Tyler Booker.
Oh,
Ooh.
Yeah, I think that the interior of that offensive line is probably the most important thing right now for the Seahawks. As much as they need some other things in other positions, you just spent a whole bunch of money on Sam Darnold. You just got Cooper Kupp in. You have these really, really good young running backs that keep getting decimated behind the line of scrimmage and play every year with injuries. Let's get some protection in there. Let's make our average hit a couple yards after the line of scrimmage as opposed to a couple yards before the line of scrimmage. And let's play some real power ball in Seattle.
I will say he didn't allow a sack last year in 775 offensive snaps. So that's a pretty good radius for a poser of an offensive lineman at a fake school.
What is he
Where
like?
Kalen DeVore's a bum.
What is he like? 6'6", 350 pounds.
Yeah.
He's a nasty, huge, smart guy. So I think that, again, it might be a little reach on certain boards, but I think it's an excellent fit. I think it's exactly what they need to do, where they need to go, and I think it could be a major improvement for a team that really needs to get after the run game to help out Sam Darnold, Cooper Kupp, and Jackson Smith.
yeah. No, I don't disagree. And also, like Justin, to be fair, you're kind of following the Seattle Seahawks tried and true method because for a while they made a habit with the late first round picks when they were still a consistent playoff team, right? And they were picking guys that many would have projected for the second round, but they had to take that risk. So taking a later first round pick projected guy, maybe early second on some boards, and picking him at what, 19th or 18, 19, that's kind of tried and true to the Seattle way, if we're being honest here. So I think maybe the most realistic mindset used in this draft so far. All right, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, multiple years in a row now they've won the NFC South. It's very interesting what they could do, right? Very, very interesting what they could do. They could go in a number of different ways. I think for the most part, the offense for this team, I'm not saying it's set. You could stand to get a little bit younger, but Mike Evans is still going strong. You hope that Chris Godwin is able to bounce back this year per usual and be himself. But they have some youngish receivers here recently, right? They drafted McMillan recently. They have the veteran Sterling Shepard, who could always be there. He'll randomly have a 50, 60-yard game, I'm sure, this season, catch a touchdown in the fourth quarter. Trey Palmer is on this team. Receiver is something I considered here, but I don't think is a need necessarily. I think the need for this team, I'm torn between the offensive line and adding a little bit more depth to the defense. That being said, because they did add a little bit into the pass rush, I think that is making me lean a little bit towards the O-line here. And when I look at the offensive line, I look at a decent couple of guys here. And I mean, was this the first selection I was thinking of making note for Tampa Bay? No, but I look at how the board is falling. I look at who's available. I look at a guy that I kind of need more long-term future and stability for some of my positions on this offensive line, whether it be if I think this guy will eventually play right tackle for me opposite of Wirfs, or if he could play guard next to Wirfs. But again, there's something about the Big Ten in recent years that some of these linemen end up being pretty good. Let me go with Josh Simmons out of the Ohio State University. This is, for Tampa Bay, it's funny to call it a luxury pick, but I think for a team that has really constructed itself well in the draft and just free agency overall in recent years, I think you're able to go with a pick like Simmons where I don't know if he'll necessarily start day one in Tampa, but the potential and the talent is there. And like I said, I could see him, because every year, right? Every year tackles get converted into guards. Guy played maybe left tackle for his last season in college, but he's going back to right tackle in the NFL. I think that could be the case with Simmons. And I think Tampa Bay is kind of a team where either or could happen to him. He could end up being the left guard next to Wirfs, or he could end up being opposite tackle for him. I think adding good young talent at a premium position on the offensive line when you paid a guy like Baker and when you have multiple wide receivers you're paying, you need to hit on guys like that to be cost controlled for the long-term future. I think Simmons is just a good all-around player. He's played for some very good Ohio State teams that have seen success, and he's been a big part of the success with his ability to just be a strong force, consistent force on that offensive line. Started his football career with the San Diego State Aztecs. Shout out to them. Before he continued it and played 2 great seasons at Ohio State, which included being part of a national championship winning team. So I got Simmons to Tampa with pick number 19. Pick 20. We're in the 20s now. Oh my God. And the Denver Broncos country. Let's figure out what your selection in this mock draft is going to be. Justin, the floor is yours.
Oh, is it now? Let's see, now, here's again. I'm 100% sure in what I would like to do with this pick. That doesn't mean that I necessarily know which player I want to take.
Okay.
And I know that's confusing, I think, to a lot of people.
No, we follow you.
I think the answer is Sean Payton needs a weapon. And do I go with the tried and true best player available according to everyone else and what was supposed to be the last 3 or 4 years as soon as he got into college? Or do I go with some, unique other players? Because the Broncos have some decent weapons at both wide receiver and running back, believe it or not. I really like Jaleel McLaughlin. I think he could be really good there now that he's got the chance to be the guy. He was excellent there filling in from time to time for Javonte Williams, and he was a really good number 2 back there. They are going to need to draft another running back, but I think that's something that we can wait on. I mean, running backs, even in a deep class like this, running backs don't necessarily go so early all the time. We've only had 1 in 20 picks. Sorry, we had 2. I forgot about Scatterville. All right, let's go chalk, and let's take Egbuka out of Ohio State. I think it's what Sean Payton can't ignore a nice shiny weapon, as he described Alvin Kamara, a nice shiny new sports car, especially when it's a need. I mean, like Troy Franklin was good for them last year, but he wasn't great. He's not even listed as the top 3 receiver there. Marvin Mims is a burner, but he's never really done much. Cortland Sutton's really the only true weapon that you can count on there. This could be an interesting addition, to say the least.
Yeah, agreed. And you kind of need consistency there. And Egbuka has had 2 seasons in his collegiate career with 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns in a season simultaneously. So, like, you get proven pedigree, and considering with the Bo Nix pick they made last year, I think Peyton is going to value that proven pedigree in a player who did it for multiple seasons at the collegiate ranks. I like the pick. I don't disagree with it at all. So, Podfather, any your thoughts about recent selections here? It's been a bit since we heard from you, and how does this impact? You got back-to-back picks. Friend of the show, Mike Tomlin, he's waiting for you.
I have the Chargers as well. Oh, damn.
It's almost like we were pretending not to know what picks were.
Not only back-to-back picks for you guys, but back-to-back Ohio State selections there. Josh Simmons is pretty much a luxury pick there, so I think it's a good one for the Bucs. They do need more offensive line help. Why not? I loved Egbuka. I know he was the number 2 Jackson Smith and Jigba for many years coming out. And so he's a solid player. He'll really work with that Denver offense. I think they've got a lot of good weapons over there too, so that's pretty good. Pittsburgh is in a quandary, man. This is the team, I mark my words, they will trade back on night 1 to get more picks. They will. They absolutely will. And here's the problem. The problem is that everywhere you think they could, in theory, go, they already have an answer somewhat. If you look at what is told for some of their needs, safety is a need for them. But they just signed Juan Thornhill to a 1-year contract, so maybe it's not really a full need for them yet. Running back. They have Kenneth Gainwell to go with Jalen Warren, so maybe they don't need another running back there. That leaves quarterback. Now, The last time the Steelers had the 21st overall pick in the first round, they went quarterback, and we saw how that worked out for them. So I don't know. I mean, my thing is that if Cam Ward doesn't go here, where is he going? If he falls this far in the draft, where is he going to go?
Well,
Hold on, let me say this.
Of that Kenny Pickett style draft, then
Yeah, that's the problem.
I will say this. I promise you, if you don't pick him with this selection, I will pick him with one of my selections coming up. Trust me.
Oh, I don't. Just
I mean, he's not going to be there when I pick in 8 picks.
See,
wait, is there that much of a gap between your picks, Justin?
Yeah,
I am so tempted to do something else though, because I like a certain quarterback so much more than Cam Ward. I am so tempted to do this. Let chaos reign, boys.
Oh no,
Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart. Yep.
Oh my God! You got to give the screen a little bit of time to load that one up. Nobody can believe it.
I know. It's broken.
Jackson Dart.
It's actually not a bad grade, all things considered. Look, I think that the difference between the two is that Dart's really your pocket passer. Dart is your Ben Roethlisberger type mold, whereas Cam Ward falls into your Justin Fields, Russell Wilson type. And that didn't work for Pittsburgh a lot last year. I think the Steelers are a team that needs to go to a pocket passer. And Mason Rudolph can be that guy, but let's be honest here. He's not proven as a starting quarterback in this league. Jackson Dart, I think, has that potential. If he can mitigate his mistakes, this is the guy that threw 4,200 yards last year, 29 touchdowns, 6 picks, completed 69.2% of his passes. I think it's a good selection. Again, this is me thinking Cam Ward's not actually going to be here. And the Steelers, they can't wait for Aaron Rodgers to decide whether or not he's going to play or not. They need to make a move. Yeah. Because if you're sitting there waiting and you let these guys pass you by and Rodgers doesn't come, Rudolph and Skylar Thompson are your 2 quarterbacks. What a pitiful way for Mike Tomlin's career to end. At least get him a young quarterback and give him a chance. Give him a shot here. So
here's my question.
Yeah.
We know what you would do here.
Yeah.
You think if this is the situation that they pass on Cam Ward?
Well, no. I think Cam Ward is gone by this point. If he falls before 1, I think he's gone by this point to somebody else. I don't think he sticks around this far. But the problem is that if you look at it as, what fits the system, what fits the mindset, what fits the mold better, it's somebody like a Dart who's better at standing in the pocket and can find the long ball. Cam Ward is going to run. Cam Ward's going to be like Lamar Jackson. He's going to run around. He's going to try and make plays. He's going to try and be a hero. And that's not going to work in this mold. I don't think so.
See, but I think I've heard this way too much about Cam Ward. I really don't think people are understanding that Cam Ward had to play the hero in Miami more often than not for them to have to be successful this season. I have gone through these tabs multiple times, right? I've gone through the offensive tackle. I've gone through the interior linemen. Have we not noticed that there are no Miami offensive linemen anywhere on the screen when we're
okay?
You have not built any way, shape, or form. They have failed to have a properly good, consistent offensive line. They have not produced enough consistent NFL caliber talent there. Cam Ward has been forced to do something that, let's look at the previous years of Miami quarterbacks, all the rest of them failed to do. Cam Ward needs to be given credit for the fact that he had it foisted on his shoulders to have to play hero ball for this team, and he did a great job. I don't buy that he can't just be a pocket passer if you asked him to be in the NFL. I just don't buy that.
Well, let me also give you a few more things that I don't like about him that I think you're getting a little knocks there.
One, his hair. 2, I'm sorry.
No. Mechanics. His throwing style is very sidearm. He throws a lot of low balls. It's not because he doesn't really align his hips properly to where he's throwing the ball. Now, again, a lot of that has to do with being chased around a whole lot. But mechanics are really hard to correct properly. Look at Tim Tebow. as an example there. Tebow's mechanics were super hard to correct because he dipped so far down that he lost that kind of accuracy coming back up. So that mechanics are tougher to correct. He also is a guy who locks in too much on that long ball. When you get like so set on one thing entirely and you miss the other options that are around you, it makes the offense look that much more predictable. I think that a guy like Dart, for example, or even a guy like Tyler Schuff from Louisville, will find those secondary or tertiary options a lot easier than Cam Ward trying to go to DK Metcalf all the time. Because that's what he'll do if he's in Pittsburgh. He'll go to DK all the time. And it'll work for certain plays, but the more you do that, the more it gets read. I think he needs to work on those skills better. And I don't think Pittsburgh's the right spot for him to do it. I can see it in a team a few picks down the line with a better offensive coach, potentially. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking a little further down here. It's not Pittsburgh. I think Jackson Dart is a more pro-ready style for what their offense is. I think that if it goes this far, I think this is the right call for them.
I think if your concern is that you don't think Pittsburgh could help Cam Ward clean the things he needs to improve on, I think that's a fine argument. But I don't like on just a pure talent grade, Cam Ward ranks high above Jackson Dart for me.
Absolutely. But that's my thing is that
and before you make your next pick here, because let's move on to the Chargers pick, I will say, like in response to just one of the things you pointed out, I think we're seeing in the NFL a lot more now. Guys, even in years 5, 6, and 7, are cleaning up their throwing motion mechanics a lot more than we did in the past. Because before the 2024 season, who was in the headlines for fixing his throwing motion way more, even though he already had been pretty successful up to this point? Josh Allen. And look at the season he just had. Like there is no such thing as coming into this league anymore and your mechanics can't be fixed. It's, are you going to the right spot to fix them, and are you willing to change your throwing mechanics? And if you want to say that Pittsburgh can't do that for Cam, I could buy that. But I think from a pure talent perspective,
my thing too is I also think that the Steelers now are on borrowed time because this is Tomlin's 19th season. I don't think he's got another shot to try and maneuver and change and mold a quarterback. I think he needs to win now with a quarterback who could do that for him. So that's why I also think that Dart's the better option here than Ward.
That's right.
And if you really, really want to fix your mechanics, you better hope that you don't go to the Jets.
Exactly. Let's go real simple here at 22. Chargers need a tight end because they lost two of their guys, and there's a perfect guy right here who knows the head coach super well, Colston Loveland. Very easy pick for them. If he's here, super easy. Nice player for Herbert to have, good catching radius, excellent blocking, knows Jim Harbaugh's offense super well. Can't ask for anything better in this one. Nice and easy.
Agreed. All right. With the Green Bay Packers, you can go in a number of different spots here. I'm very torn here. I'm going to stay away from receiver only because, one of these receivers needs to break out this year. Right? One of them has to break out at some point. What's the word that comes before men's here? And is it old men's fallacy? And expecting eventually one of these guys is eventually going to break out, like Dobbs, Watson, more consistency from Reed, Wicks. One of them has to do something at some point, do they not? I'm very torn because I actually wanted to really pick receiver here, but I'm kind of looking at that Packers interior of the offensive line. And I actually just spoke about this team a couple weeks ago because I talked about Jordan Morgan, right? And the potential he has to battle for a starting tackle position here. But I still think this offensive line, there still needs to be a little bit of fixing of it. There's a couple older guys. I don't think it's such a thing as thinking too early to draft ahead. And I think you've got a guy in Zabel here. I think this is a phenomenal pick. We talked about the small schools before in North Dakota State, a school that's kind of tried and true for giving us some really good players here in recent years, right? And Zabel and just offensive line in general. There have been some pretty good mid-major school offensive linemen drafted here in recent years in development. I think Zabel could be a guy for that. Am I putting too much on the Packers to develop two young offensive linemen at once? Maybe, but at the same time, between Morgan, who could potentially fill in one of the tackle spots, and I think Zabel will be able to clock in at one of the two guard spots. I think sometimes in this league, I think we underrate how quickly teams are to move on from guys. I think the Packers look at the offensive line as nowhere near a finished product, and they need to do way more. So that's my pick for them. With the Minnesota Vikings, look, I critiqued this side of the ball last year. I'm going to continue to critique this side of the ball this year. I don't care if they had the miracle season. They still need to do better, and they need to get younger on the defensive side of the ball. And I think you have a chance here to put one of two different guys next to Harrison Smith, and whether they're playing next to him or they're playing beneath him and learning, I'm going to go with this youngster out of South Carolina, Emmanuel Wari. I have absolutely been elated with him in the draft process. He is my number one safety personally in this draft when I really break it down between him and Starks. I think the range, I think the potential, I think the talent on this kid is big. And I think I think he's going to be a talented kid. I think he's going to be extremely talented, has all the intangibles to be a great starting safety in this league. And tell me a better veteran safety you want to teach your young safety right now than Harrison Smith. Tell me right now. Like, come on now. That's kind of the perfect guy. He's been there. He's done that. He's seen so many safety partners. And the guys go through. Let's go. Let's run with that, to say the very least. So that is my selection there. 25th overall, the Houston Texans. It's back to the Podfather.
Hello.
I feel so bad for Justin. Justin, you're coming up here. Don't worry.
Yeah. So
You take your time.
don't you worry, I will. So I think this is a bit of an interesting selection here because the Texans have done so much in the offseason to kind of revitalize their team when it comes to them, getting Cam Robinson, getting Berrios and Kirk and Laken Tomlinson, and Trent Brown, areas that I thought maybe they would have been a little bit, needy on. So I'm going to go with maybe something that's a little more of a luxury pick for them. I think that their number one guy at this position is starting to come to the end.
Mm.
And I feel as though when I look at the rest of their depth chart here in this position, I don't foresee either guy below him replacing him. So this is a bit of a reach, but I think it's a good pick for them because I think this is a young player who checks a lot of boxes, who fills a lot of good spots. Doesn't have to really play right away, but does a really good job. His best work as a receiver in this position. I'm taking Mason Taylor, the tight end out of LSU here at 25. Dalton Schultz can be a good teacher for him. Taylor's still very young, but at 6'5", 255, has a good catch radius, really smooth, very explosive out of his stance, and someone who I think can be a good option for C.J. Stroud. Now he needs to get a little bit better at blocking, but that's where guys like Brevin Jordan and Cade Stover can also help him out on that too. But I think it's a good spot for him to fall, and I think it's a good receiving option for them, for a team that, needs a lot more help because Stroud's going to fling the ball over the field to all those guys.
So I picked the Rams, and I'm not going to waste any time with this selection. The fact that this guy has fallen this below, and hey, we just talked about things he needs to fix. I mean, what better situation than to go to a team that has a veteran quarterback for you to learn under? Finally, Cameron Ward, you're going somewhere. You're getting drafted, and you're getting drafted by the LA Rams with the 26th overall pick. Look at what our opinions are of Cam Ward in general. If there's one coach that's going to help him, it's going to be Sean McVay, to say the very least. And, I think it's a no-brainer. If you're going to get the successor to Matthew Stafford here, the Rams have proven themselves amazing when it comes to drafting depth picks in defense and offense in the last couple drafts. Why not get your quarterback of the future? Lock him in right now. He gets to learn for a year before Stafford rides into the sunset, and then you get to restock and reload with Cam Ward. If this was a deeper quarterback draft class, I could actually see the Rams, not a big trade up, but maybe trading up 2-3 spots if there were more starting caliber quarterbacks in this draft, but I just don't see it. But hey, they'll gladly settle with Cam Ward.
Settle.
So that being said, we're back to the Ravens. Who's making this? Oh no, it's Rick. It's Rick making this pick again. We missed Justin. The people want Justin to pick again.
People want Justin. They'll get Justin very soon. I think the Ravens can use a little more depth at this position, and I love this pick. I think that he is an excellent position guy here to go alongside guys like Broderick Washington and Okoye and Matabuke. James Pierce, the edge out of Tennessee, goes here for them. I think he's a very smooth, talented player on the edge. Will really help this team out with defensive sets. Ravens do need some offensive help, I think, but defense is better for them in this position. So, and Pierce is a really good player for them. I think he'll go here and fit in the bill nicely.
Nice. Oh, it's the Lions. It's Justin. It's Justin.
Who?
He's back. So, Justin, what do you think? What do you think?
What am I thinking? Indeed. Good question. I'm thinking one. I'm still getting this screwed up, so let me just make sure I have the correct guys on my board here. And then I think I'm gonna go. Hold on a second.
I will say really quick, if I didn't hate the Titans as much as I did, like that, I feel like the uniform kind of goes well on me, realistically.
Yeah, it goes well. But again, you only hated Tannehill. You didn't really hate the Titans.
That's actually very true. That's very true.
The other way you'd hate the Titans is if Trent Baalke became their GM.
Trent Baalke becomes GM and re-signs Ryan Tannehill.
Oh, yeah. Let's have some fun with that. Or signs Russell Wilson instead.
Or trades for Josh Allen and Haley Steinfeld becomes the assistant coach of the team.
You never know.
I feel like we bought enough time for him here. Justin, I mean, Lions were expecting a deeper run than what they had. Defense got torn up in the divisional round, but they still were the first team in the NFC. This is still an extremely talented team. It's kind of this you need to win the war of attrition this next season, I feel, especially on the defensive side. You just got to draft depth. So I can imagine Justin is about to go for a very nice depth pick right here when it comes to the Detroit Lions.
I think I am.
There you go.
I think I am going to go depth here.
Have I ever steered the people wrong?
Well,
Don't answer that.
You seem to know me pretty well. I am going to go depth, and I'm going to say that, God forbid, we have another injury like we did last year in the crux of the season, and our defensive MVP goes down. What are we to do? What are we to do with no Aiden Hutchinson on the field? We need to get after the quarterback, and to do that, we need an edge rusher. And we are going to go with the 6'2", 247-pound senior out of Boston College, Donovan. I'm not going to try and pronounce that.
Izaraku.
Sure.
Izaraku, yeah.
Sure.
I like that pick. I was really concerned. I was hoping he'd be available early in the second round. I was hoping for him. It's a good pick, Justin.
Thanks.
It's a good pick. But no, I mean, no, you're 100% right. Like the Lions can go in a number of different directions. I think if they're maybe lucky in certain instances, like you could maybe argue the defensive backfield, right? Because they did lose who did they lose in free agency this past year? Davis, right? He left the team. They could definitely, you can make the argument that they could go DB, but I don't blame you for adding depth to the front four / front seven.
I looked at a couple of different DBs, but I'm not like devastated by that loss. They picked up DJ Reed. They still have Terry and Arnold. They still got Amik Robertson. I mean, they have some good secondary guys in their secondary now. That I didn't think it was an absolute need the way I thought. Man, when Aiden Hutchinson went down, they had no one left for quarterback. Nobody. So.
Yeah. All right. So I'm doing this mock as well as you guys are with the database here too. And I did this pick because I think this guy can be really, really good. I looked at the grade and it's a D+, which tells you how the mock draft database thinks. But let me explain my line of thinking so y'all can understand where I'm going with this. For the Commanders, they got Larry Tunsil in free agency. They got Nick Herbig in free agency. They got Debo. They got a few other pieces in free agency out of trades and everything. So they don't necessarily need, I would say, significant upgrades a lot of places.
Wait, can I guess?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just because I feel like I know where this is going.
Go ahead.
Are you going to take Cam Ward here?
No. Cam Ward's already gone.
I'm sorry. A quarterback of any kind?
No. Yeah. Nice try. Nice try.
Dude, what if Jaden Daniels doesn't re-sign in 3 years?
Well, then we'll find
Rick,
some Samoan kid to be the quarterback of
Rick,
choice.
Will Howard, Quinn Ewers, Kyle McCord, they're all right
Never.
there.
Nope.
Jalen Milroe is your guy.
Nope. And especially not Jalen Milroe. I think you know why. No, I think luxury here is going to be drafting a kid who this is kind of going to be a similar mold to another pick that was mocked a little bit when it was made, and it somewhat has shown out, but not really. Back when the Texans took Titus Howard out of Alabama State in the first round, late first round, it was a lot of question of why is he going this high. Interior offensive lineman, I'm going to go with Charles Grant out of William & Mary here at the 29th overall pick. Again, it's going to be a low rating. Don't really care. He's 6'4", 300 pounds. Didn't step onto the football field until a junior year of high school, but played 5 years at William & Mary with the Tribe. Very solid, very good, heavy lineman. This is the team that needs depth because Sam Cosmi got hurt in the postseason last year. They've got Tyler Baez, as I said. They have Tunsil. They have a few other pieces. Why not get more depth in a good spot? They're in a really good position, this team. Take a young guy, mold him, make him a bruiser in this division. I say it's a good fit for them. It's a little high, but I think it's going to be somebody who they can make work for what they need.
I don't blame it. I don't blame it at all. All right, Justin, you get your back-to-back picks now in this first round.
Back-to-back?
Yeah.
That is crazy. I think that what is important here is that Buffalo makes a stark improvement. And I think that depth-wise, there's a lot of places where people think that there might be issues. Now, I'm not a believer in their receiving core so much. It's not terrible, but it's really not what we would like to see. I think that their offensive line is solid. I think that their run game and quarterback play is solid. So I'm going to go with not what everyone else lists as an issue, but what I list as an issue for them. And that means I'm going to take the best player that I have available to fit that issue. And it's the player that I think is dropped probably the most out of all of the positions in the draft so far. And it is not a wide receiver, Jurg. It's going to be a safety. It's going to be Malachi Starks out of Georgia. Buffalo has had a tough time, not consistently tough, but at unfortunate, terrible times, they have had a ton of issues at secondary positions. And as decent as they were, I mean, Damar Hamlin was a starter last year. He was pretty solid. I forget who the other one was. It was Taylor Rapp. Oh, yeah, they got him from L.A. He was also pretty solid. But I don't believe in these guys the way that I think you need to if you want to win a Super Bowl. So
if we rewind the tape, I went to safety first when you made the Stark reference because I thought the joke was Malachi Starks. You took me on a little bit of a road there once you mentioned wide receiver, Justin. But rewind the tape, people. I went to the safety position after you said the word Stark because I had a feeling. That was my initial gut feeling. So
yes,
I still know Justin pretty well here, to say the very least. So Justin, finish off your thought, and then go to the Kansas City Chiefs pick, and give me one position to go to this time, not two different ones.
I'm gonna keep you on your toes, Jurg. You don't worry about that.
God dang you.
No, I think that there's a lot left to be desired in certain places for that team, and I think one of them is depth in the secondary, and it's been an issue there for a very long time. And I know they believe in their guys, but I think that that's a position. If that guy falls, they have no choice but to bolster that secondary. And that's where I would go. Now, the question is, where do we go with the spurned two-time, 3 out of 5 year time champions, the Kansas City Chiefs? Because really there's a number of different things that we can do with this team to make it better. There's not a ton of needs. Obviously, everyone is going to say that the offensive line needs help, and they are not incorrect. But I don't necessarily know if this is where I'm going with the abundance of other positions. For example, edge rusher or defensive interior. Kenneth Grant is an interesting name here. I mean, can you imagine 6'3", 339 pounds in that Kansas City defensive line? That defense was nasty last year. But I think I'm also going to pull a fast one here. I think I am. I think a lot of people aren't considering what they need offensively either.
Tanner McKee.
Everyone says that they need a quarterback now. Everyone says that they.
So Max Brosmer at Minnesota is where you're going, right?
Everyone says that it looks like maybe they'll be better this year at receiver, maybe. But let's face it. I mean, they didn't re-sign Hopkins as of yet. I don't think Hopkins has signed anywhere else, has he?
I don't remember if he did.
Xavier Worthy was good, but disappeared at times. There's only so much that you can use a speed demon receiver like that in their type of offense. I mean, even Tyreek Hill had games where he wasn't, except for that one season, where he wasn't just immediately electric in their thing. And Rashee Rice has been up and down. Hollywood Brown spent a lot of time hurt. Travis Kelce is another player that was a little disappointing statistically last year. Not that I'm drafting a tight end here. So I think I'm going to go offensive weapon. And notice I did not say receiver because I think that they could use a different kind of offensive weapon. And that's going to be Omarion Hampton out of North Carolina.
That was going to be one of my future picks.
Yeah. I think, I know you told me you thought that he was your second best running back. And I understand why. He is an excellent bruising running back. He could do so much. He could slash. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. And I think he's exactly what they need as a complement to Isaiah Pacheco, who also was injured last year. And when he went down, things were not great for them. Kareem Hunt did happen to come back and was a solid fit, but there was just something a little bit different about that run game that I think hurt them from time to time. So this is a weapon I think Andy Reid would love. They don't have to necessarily rely on a shorter running back room than usual and maybe get back to where they want to be.
Yeah, to say the very least. And running back can very much be the way. Let's see if this running back selection will pan out better for them than the last one they made with a highly touted guy in Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But no, Hampton's a different player. Kid's a physical beast. He's a battering ram. He's perfect. And I mean, with the inconsistency of what the running backs have been the last couple of years, maybe he could be finally the guy that sticks, right? Because Pacheco, even when he came back from injury, kind of forgot about him sometimes.
Let's not talk about Pacheco and the injury because that ruined my fantasy team last year.
To say the very least. All right, so let's make a couple of picks here. I will go very quickly here with my back-to-back picks as I finished off this round for us, and then I start the next round with the Browns pick. Look, the Eagles, defending Super Bowl champions, they have a ability to pick whatever they want here, and we're not allowed to criticize it because they have starters at all 22 positions right now. They could pick a guy that is strictly going to sit this year, that is going to develop. When I read draft reports of a player and they're saying he's basically carved from granite or granite, depending on the way you want to say it, if they are able to mold this kid and turn him into a beast of a pass rusher that they believe he has the physical tangibles to, he has great speed and power, he has great strength, amazing first step burst. Man, he's a project, but if any team can build a project, it's going to be the team that just won the Super Bowl. I think Rick knows who I'm going with. I'm going with Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M to the Philadelphia Eagles. You thought I was going with the Georgia player to continue.
I thought you were hitting the pipeline. Yeah, I thought you were going with the pipeline. Yeah.
No, not right now. And with the Cleveland Browns, look, I had to go. I kept to myself on the defensive side of things, but I'm still going to get to go on the offensive side of the ball here because, look, if we do believe that Grabby McGraberson is going to be the quarterback this year, he's going to need a little bit more support on the wide receiving core than he did last season. And let's go with a guy. He's not just a deep threat in terms of being a speed demon. This guy makes plays down the field on a pretty consistent basis. And when the Browns bring in a better quarterback in 2026 or 2027, we're going to see a lot more of him and a lot better. But give me Matthew Golden out of Texas here for the Cleveland Browns. He's a talented kid. He did it at multiple schools. He started out at Houston before going to Texas, and he played it up against some really big-time competition. I it's not my end-all be-all because we've seen guys go to these top-tier schools and not perform well. But I think there's certain guys that being forged in the fire of going up against top-tier teams does something for me in terms of what their stock is and what they could potentially do. I think Golden is one of these guys. I think he playing in a great program in Texas, developing there his last year in college before turning pro. I think the kid's going to be really good. And I kind of feel bad because I feel like I didn't draft him to a great team, but I think he was the best. I think he was the best player available at a position they really need. I don't think the Browns are solved at receiver in any way, shape, or form. And I think Golden helped them out.
I mean, he missed a golden opportunity to draft a kid named Burden to play with Gravy McGraverson, so you know.
But I don't want to give him that burden to start his career with a mid.
Hey-o.
But all right, enough of the jokes. Justin, you continue. We're getting a little bit more Justin here with these selections. So where do you go, Justin, with this pick up for the Giants? You went, as we could see, thank you, Mock Draft Database, by the way. Our previous picks are right there. An A-plus pick for Justin with Travis Hunter, according to them. So where do you go with the 34th overall pick, Justin?
I think I'm going to go with another A-plus pick, guys. And I'm just thinking, what would look really nice in between Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns?
Kenneth Grant.
Out of Michigan.
I got to tell you, if those two picks hit, I know a lot of Giants fans who are going to be very happy. Very, very happy.
Hit as in seed or hit as in that's who they actually take?
Both.
That's true. Yeah, that's both. I think both.
They would prefer both, Justin.
Yes. Titans here. Still do need a quarterback, I believe, because Will Levis, you could argue that. But I don't like the quarterbacks that are remaining. Jalen Milroe has no capacity to play in this league whatsoever. It's not going to happen until next try. However,
I will refuse to take him on principle, hoping that there's some situation because, like, he's the only quarterback, but I don't want to do it.
Luther Burden here goes. I think this is a good second round spot for him. The Titans need more offensive weapons. Again, Traylon Burks was a bust. You also have to understand that this is not going to be the year for the Titans to pick a quarterback that's going to be weak and going to be faltering. Let Levis have one more year. Let him be a lame duck like Curtis Painter was before the Colts drafted Andrew Luck. And there you go. Have that for what it is. It's still me. Oh, hey, look at that. Jacksonville now. So this is an interesting one because I'm tempted to go with the safety here, but the top safeties that I have on my board are both guys that have a lot of holes in their game. Kevin Winston Jr. at Penn State is coming off a really bad knee injury, and Xavier Watson isn't really good at tackling. So I got to go somewhere else for my money. Obviously, I went Ted McMillan, so I'm not going to go with another guy there. But I think what I'm going to do in this aspect, I'm going to go with, and again, it's amazing that there's Tennessee guys that are just going crazy in this draft. I'm going to go with, where is he? Omar Norman Lott out of Tennessee on the defensive line. This is a guy who rates higher in some circles than in others. And I think, really strong for a step. He's a bit of a shorter guy, but he's going to burst in. And you pair him with, Walker and all the different linemen that are there. It gives another motor, gives another piece for Jacksonville on defense to work with. They have a guy on offense in McMillan, you pair Thomas, get another piece for depth on defense to really push through and make something happen here. So I go with Norman Lott from Tennessee.
We quickly saw before it moved on to the Raiders, the site rated that a C-plus pick.
Yeah, the site doesn't like my picks, but that's because I go a little off the beaten path. That's fine.
That's true. Speaking of which, Justin, your pick, Justin just hit him with the A-pluses for his selections. Do we got another A-plus pick here for the Raiders at 37?
Yep. And I think I love where the Raiders have landed because what we were talking about is getting a true player to be a cornerstone for the foreseeable future. Because if they need to draft a quarterback at some point, they might have a chance to actually get someone pretty solid. And what more could you want if you have a starting left tackle that's had over 1,500 starts at left tackle at a top tier school, who all they do is win, even though they haven't won a national championship. And why not bring in a left tackle who's a big, talented, athletic motherfucker, excuse my language, in Josh Connolly Jr., who has just fallen directly into the Raiders' laps. I mean, what kind of setup would that be for them to get both Genty and Connolly Jr.?
Is that a $5 fine for his specific brand of curse there?
That was accurate. That's the John Gruden in me coming out.
Holy hell!
Yeah.
I mean, I did mock Jackson Powers Johnson to them last year for, and they didn't go with it. So why not get his teammate instead? I suppose. But whew.
Oh hey,
all right then.
Let's keep.
Is that an all right then to the curse, or is that an all right then to the pick?
Both.
Sure, let's go with it.
It's always both with you guys.
I know.
Oh, you're one to talk. Anyways, let's continue this. I'm not going to waste time here. Look, if Justin picked one big fucker, then I will gladly go the same. But on the opposite side of the ball, I would go offensive line. The first one, this is a Mike Vrabel team. I'm going to go defensive line in this one. Give me Derek Harmon out of Oregon as well. Like, this kid was an absolute beast. Oregon's first season in the Big Ten, and they did really well. Oh, look at that. C+ grade. Who picked Cam Scatterbo in the first round? But I think ultimately Harmon is a guy who he's going to prove himself very valuable for the Patriots. The Patriots are, like, let's be real here. Like, they're a rebuilding team. And I know with a current and a former Jets fan here to hear it, it's rare to hear that. Haven't really heard that. But they're a legitimate rebuilding team. And you got to go where the talent brings you. Got to go and maybe make a couple of risky selections. And Harmon started his career at Michigan State for a couple years. Detroit, Michigan native, 6'4", over 300 pounds. Kid can make an impact on the defensive line. I firmly believe it for the Pats. So going with him in that pick there. I know the Chicago. Oh, wow, it's Bears, Saints, Bears with 3 selections in a row. So here's the Podfather run of the draft, ladies and gentlemen.
Am I running the draft here? Sure, why not? I suppose, whatever. All right, so the Bears do have a bit of a luxury here in that they can take a bit of a flyer on the 39th pick because they have 41 as well. I will basically go against what I said previously, and I will take Kevin Winston Jr. out of Penn State on this one, the safety. Because they don't necessarily – it is a need, but it's not a glaring need because it's a team that has, Tavarius Moore, Jonathan Owens, Elijah Hicks, Kevin Byard there, and Brisker. So they've got other needs that are there, but put him out there, let him kind of heal up from the injury because when he's fully healed, he is an excellent, excellent player for them. Funny, C+, haha, shut up.
C's get the degrees.
Exactly, yes they do. Now, the Saints. The Saints. Let's see how this one does because I got an A+ on the Shedeur Sanders pick, obviously. And this one I'm going to hit on a B+ pick for them. I'm going to give them a back to pair with Alvin Kamara, and that's going to be Travion Henderson out of Ohio State. Not my first choice by any means, but definitely a guy who has great agility and really good speed when he is given the opportunity to do so. So I think that he would be a good fit there and a good system. And again, just another weapon for Shedeur to work with here. And back to the Bears. When I look at the Bears in this aspect, I think one thing that they need as well, because they don't have Keenan Allen anymore, is, try and get one more weapon out there. I mean, they have Roma Dunze, so everything's all good in that aspect. But, try to look and see other areas where they have the Jeff Scatterbo, they have more Dunze. Maybe get another weapon. Maybe get another player who, could be a good, solid wide receiver for them. Someone who, may draft a little bit higher in certain circles than in others. And that's going to be a good, compact slot receiver. And little bit higher, but hey, guess what? It's going to be a higher grade than the other two for the Bears. Stupid website. Jalen Noel out of Iowa State. Very, very good player. 1,193 yards, 80 catches last year for Iowa State. A nice piece to complement Moore and Adunze, because Noel's got a lot of good speed on the interior and can really make those undercuts really nicely for Caleb Williams to throw to. So I was thinking tight end, but then that would go against Cole Kmet, and we know that I don't want to do that. So, give me a wide receiver here instead.
Jets are up again. I am picking for them, and I would like to believe that Justin may have some faith in me in what I will try to do with this selection.
I have plenty of faith in you, Jurg. I have no faith in the Jets.
Jalen Milrose on the board, just saying.
Yeah, I promise you I'm not picking him either. I'm hoping that you are forced to somehow pick him at some point.
Not happening.
Look, maybe Justin feels like I should go on the offensive side here, but I look at the Jets. While there is talent to me on the defensive line of this team, I still think that they could do to get a little more depth there. And also maybe like turn things around, because I feel like at some point with certain guys, it's put up or shut up. And you need to have a little bit of pressure on him. And I'm going to bring in a guy. I promise you he's not going to hold out on the team in training camp for the most part. But what I will say is that this kid may need a little bit of time to develop. And I think somewhat similar to his teammate, you need to establish where on the defense he's going to play. Although I think they'll be able to comfortably slot him into kind of like that edge/outside linebacker role at some point. Look, he's technically the guy with the highest rank left that's there. I think if he drops all the way to the second round, you'll take him. SEC school, I think 5 or 6 sacks this past year. He's very good at being able to cover in space, relatively speaking. He explodes out of blocks with a great stance when he needs to. Michael Williams here. And I'm pronouncing him Michael. I don't know if it's Michael or Michael, but Michael Williams out of Georgia. Like, just add some natural, raw, blue chip talent if you're the Jets with a second-round pick, and that's what I'm going to do with him right there. And let me keep the train rolling here with the San Francisco 49ers selection that I have. And I'm going to go cornerback here on this one because I mentioned it earlier that I was going to consider corner. Well, let me go corner here. And let me go with a speed demon. Like, ever since – and even he wasn't necessarily a man-to-man corner by the time he got to San Fran. Like, San Fran needs guys that are going to be able to cover a lot of space. Let's go with a speed demon to cover a good amount of space here. Let's go with the fastest corner, I think, on the board here. And Maxwell Harrison out of the University of Kentucky. To say the very least, like, hit a couple things there. That's need, that's speed, a need for speed. But I think if you're San Fran, you're rebuilding multiple parts of this team. You add a top flight offensive lineman and then a secondary starter in the second round. You'll take that, to say the very least, as you try to reclaim your stance as the power in the NFC West and one of the powers in the conference. Justin, continue on. You have the Cowboys and then the Colts back-to-back picks.
Yes, I do. Now, Cowboys, I still think they need some offensive line. They could probably use some help at receiver, too. There's a few different guys on the board that I like at wide receiver, but I think I'm going to hold off on that for now. Because really, I think the answer here is you're gonna have to replace everything that you lost on the edge. And to do that, I think that what I think is probably the biggest and strongest guy left. He didn't have the sack production that you're looking for, but I mean, at 6'4", 285 pounds, you're gonna take a chance. And I'm gonna take Nick Scarton out of Texas A&M. Now, for the Colts, again, we gotta really address that defense. And the next thing I'm gonna do is take a safety. Xavier Watts out of Notre Dame.
Not bad. My pick is still here, and I'm getting exactly what I want. Carson Schwessinger out of UCLA to be the new lead linebacker for the Atlanta Falcons. I like the kid coming out. I think he's the definitive number 2 linebacker behind Jihad Campbell, who Justin picked earlier in the draft for the Colts. This kid went from walk-on to All-American. You need someone that has that kind of hunger coming into the NFL, and I think the Falcons I think one of the things missing from that locker room last season, aside from competent defense, are guys that really want it. There's too many naturally talented and naturally skilled guys, I think. I could appreciate a guy who had to go on quite the long journey, to say the very least, in Schwessinger or Schweswinger, and I think he's going to be a guy who's absolutely great. He can even help for you on special teams too, so the kid can play defense and special teams. But he is amazing. His ability to read, right, reading what the offense is doing. He was praised in his scouting report for being able to read play action, especially, and being able to kind of decipher some of what the offense is planning to do at the line of scrimmage. And I think the Falcons kind of need a guy like that, especially when you're in a division that it's going to be creative with Baker and Tampa, right? If Shador or a quarterback goes to New Orleans, they're going to have a new young piece, face of the franchise. And Carolina and what they're trying to do offensively is they continue to rebuild Bryce Young. So give me a linebacker of the future going to the Atlanta Falcons. Podfather, the Dolphins are coming up for you.
Yeah, but first.
It's the Cardinals.
Patrick Peterson just retired, I believe, gentlemen, if I'm not mistaken.
Indeed he did.
So
one-day contract.
Let's get him his replacement. Trey Amos out of Ole Miss.
I love that.
Two Rebels going to Arizona here, boys. Really, really excellent player. Really good size, really good movement, really versatility for them. I think it's going to be a big hit for them on their side of the ball there. So yeah, I'll take that in a heartbeat. Now, the Dolphins. I'm tempted to do something here that is really interesting, but also really stupid. But then again, what else am I known for, right? Let me pick. Let me do it. Let me do this. He will definitely go a lot. He would definitely be available a lot sooner or a lot later on this board here. But let me go with a guy who. Let me find him first. Let me see if I can find him first on this one. There he is. Okay. All right. Let me go with a guy who's the greatest anomaly for a draft prospect I've ever seen. And it's going to be another D-plus pick, but there's a reason for it. Willie Lampkin, the interior offensive lineman for North Carolina. You have to go very far down the list to get to him.
Oh, my God.
And then I'll keep going. Keep going. There he is. Now, let me explain to you what this guy is, okay? And why he's a reverse unicorn. Ready? He's an offensive lineman, right?
Yeah.
He's 5'11", 290. He's a boulder. He's an absolute boulder in a position there. How he's going to translate, I'd be very interested to see what Mike McDaniel can do putting him on offensive schemes, because I also think that he could be a guy you could line up as like a fullback, give him the ball to carry it, and watch him go. I think there's a lot of use for him in Miami, a lot of interesting play there for him, but they also do need some interior offensive line help, and I think that he's a guy who could find his way. He could be that no-nonsense guy who could really revolutionize the position, whereas it's a smaller guy who's got a lot of power and a low center of gravity. So it's a low pick, and it's not a great one, but then again, it's also the Dolphins, so I don't really care that much.
You know, we make jokes about how Justin is kind of like the Cody Rhodes for the podcast, right? What is the voice that comes in before Cody's song always goes? Wrestling has more than one royal family. Well, royalty is coming to the Cincinnati Bengals, but they already have the King of Ohio. Now they're going to add a princely figure from Mississippi. They're going to take Princely from Ole Miss here as their edge rusher to develop. Hey, I thought it was a good joke.
I thought you were going with Jalen Royals out of Utah State, but okay.
No. Very close. But no, I mean, this kid, he's a finesse speed rusher who's going to be able to get to the quarterback at a good bit. Had a solid final season as a Gator, right? But he stayed for a fifth year, went to Ole Miss, double-digit sack season. He needs to improve, I think, his physicality. I think his big thing is his consistency as a run defender and helping on that end in the NFL. But in terms of being able to make a couple splash plays early on and getting to the quarterback, I think he'll be able to do that, to say the very least. So I have Princely from Ole Miss. Not going to try to say his last name either, even though I tried to take a stab at it in the pre-draft process. Uman Milan? That's my best crack at it. So that's who I'm going with at that pick. Justin, we have a little bit of run of a couple picks here. Well, you got two Seahawks picks here in close proximity with a Broncos sandwiched in between. So let's go. Former Super Bowl matchups. Seahawks Broncos, by the way. So Justin, these next three picks are all yours.
All right. Well, first, let's go with some size here. And I know we went big on the offensive line beforehand. So now I'm going to go big on the defensive line, and I'm going to go with Landon Jackson at 6'7", 280 pounds. He can get after him. And that's really all you have to say about that dude. That dude is not someone you want to see facing you if you're an offensive lineman. For the 1998 Denver Broncos, we have a plethora of wide receiver options here, which is something that I like, especially since we already went a wide receiver here, so maybe we would consider something else. I know that there's a couple of different things. You know what? Here's a guy that's been on my radar that I think will help them out. You just drafted a nice young quarterback. You just drafted, a nice young receiver. You want your team to be able to protect these guys for a long time. And let's get Bo Nix a little partner in crime here. Let's draft a new center to replace Luke Wattenberg. And I'm going to go with Jared Wilson out of Georgia. 6'3", 310 pounds is just what I want in the middle of my offensive line. And then we'll come back to Seattle again because I have to do 3 picks in a row here. Let's see. See, on my board, we've already addressed some of the major issues here. But you know what? Why not double down? Let's take Braden Swinson out of LSU.
Did you see the D plus flash on the screen there before it changed? Sheesh.
D plus?
Yeah, D plus.
That's fine. They've been giving me A's all the time. Sometimes.
Sheesh, I think that's a little bit harsh. I think that's
join me in the D plus world.
Is it because you think it's because I took 2 edge rushers back to back?
That could be the case. Maybe. I don't know.
Heck 'em.
Heck 'em, to say the very least. All right. Tampa Bay. It's an interesting situation here with Tampa Bay. Again, I still think this is a team that you could go in a couple different selections and you can't necessarily be wrong in the pick. Maybe if I had to reconsider my first-round pick, I maybe would have gone with one of the interior offensive linemen instead, or gone with a different position and then go interior offensive line, because I do see a nice interior offensive line pick here, but I already gone with full line, so I'm not necessarily going to double down with that selection. Look, I look at this team. I know who the top suggested guy is that's left, but you know what? Replenish the defensive backfield a little bit. This is my I would say my favorite between I know I picked Harrison earlier with Kentucky, but I think Thomas out of FSU is personally my favorite guy with the middle selections left here. I'm going to pick him coming out. I don't see why not. I love the kid. I think he's got a perfect blend on his skill set. I think the size is there. I love his ball playing potential. Get him in Tampa Bay and get him going right away. The kid gets to stay in state. FSU. How long is the drive from FSU to Tampa, you think? Because he's probably not going to have to board a plane necessarily. How long is that drive, do you reckon? Is it an hour and a half? I have no idea where Florida State's campus is. I'll say that right now.
It's in Tallahassee. That's probably yeah. It's probably a good few hours from there, I'd say.
I'm doing a favor. I get to save the kid a little bit of airfare. To be fair, right? Anything to do to help some of these kids as they move from the college ranks into the pros. All right, the Green Bay Packers are my next selection here. Green Bay, it's very weird. I don't know if weird is the word, but they've had a guy there for years in Alexander, who's been one of the best. Jair Alexander has been one of the best corners, I think, when healthy in the league. The problem is he's dealt with a little bit of injury issues here recently. And I think the bloom is starting to come off the rose. There have even been a couple situations of him and his leadership being called into question. I think if a guy like that is eventually going to be moved off, I think you're going to have to pick a guy who he unfortunately missed a bit of time here due to injury, but he was a captain. He was able to play, caught a couple interceptions in his second year. He was a freshman All-American. He had 6 interceptions and a pick 6 in his freshman year. So I'm going with the potential here. The young man out of Notre Dame. for the Green Bay Packers. Let's replenish the secondary with Benjamin Morrison out of the University of Notre Dame. That is the pick I'm going to go here for them. Rick, I saw a little bit of a reaction there. Were you hoping that Morrison was going to be available for your Chargers pick?
No, I thought about Morrison being there, and that's a good selection for them, but he's not somebody that I think is needed right now for the Chargers. And this is a pretty deep quarterback room for it. Plus, there's another pick that's there too, so that I want instead. So it's all good. I have no problems there with that. What I'm going to do is, I talked about how Jim Harbaugh likes his, Michigan guys. Well, I think he also likes guys who are a little bit more of a fun story. And there's a guy here who was very lightly recruited, but became a star in a lower tier conference and had an excellent showing at the Senior Bowl for them. And it fits a need because they need to get better on the front line. So give me, at 55, the defensive lineman Darius Alexander out of Toledo. Yeah, I think this is a kid who, has a very good motor. He's super strong. With the Rockets last year, 4 sacks, really played very well. Really, 25 hurries, 8 hits on the quarterback. Kid can get through the line and make it pretty easily for him. And again, I think you got to look at it like this too. When you're in camp and you're going up against Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt, if you can get through those guys once in a while, you can get through pretty much anybody. So I think he'll do very well. I think he'll do well in Harbaugh's system too. That's a good pick for them, I think.
I was considering him strongly when it came to the Bengals.
Yep.
Pick it was between him and Princely before I ended up picking Princely, honestly. So I don't blame it at all. Good pick. Justin, back-to-back picks. You got the Bills and then the Carolina Panthers.
Bills and then the Carolina Panthers.
Then we have the Texans. Wow, this is basically you two for like the next 6 picks. I got to take a little bit of time off here.
How about that?
So I think I'm gonna go again a little unorthodox, and I'm gonna go with a player out of Stanford named Alec Ayomaner, wide receiver, 6'2", 210 pounds. He has a number of different ways to get off the ball. I think he's exactly the kind of IQ player that Buffalo likes to have in their locker room. And I think it'll be a fairly solid fit for them up in Western New York. Now, for the Carolina Panthers, I think I'm also going to stay receiver. And see, I'm torn here. I don't know if you could tell. I've been looking at a lot of the receivers that are available still. Normally, when I'm torn, I would go with the tiebreaker, which is production. And production is pretty even. So I'll trust the order that I have them on my board, and I'm going to go with Jaden Higgins out of Iowa, 6'4", 215 pounds. He's a little bit bigger than the receiver I was looking at in Jack Beck, who also has some injury history. So I think that makes this the right move here. But it's another big, strong weapon for Bryce Young to eventually probably overthrow.
Like Chick-fil-A is not open on Sundays, that's for sure. Guys, I have the Texans pick here, I believe, correct? Yes, I do. And it's a rough year for C.J. Stroud last year, right? 52 sacks. Not great.
Jalen Milroe?
No.
Cam Scatabo?
No, he's already gone. Let's give Stroud some help on the offensive line, and let's give him a guy who, in 3 years at West Virginia, over nearly 1,200 snaps as their left tackle, never allowed a sack, and that would be Wyatt Millum, the 6'6" tackle out of West Virginia, out of Morgantown, because I need some help in a darn big way, I would say. So put him on there. and let's have some fun and watch what happens here. Now, for the Baltimore Ravens, or the Baltimore Ravens, if you will.
I mean, if Jalen Milroe is going to learn under someone, why not Lamar?
Because no. Baltimore is a really interesting case, though, because they don't need to draft a running back because they have, their answers. This is kind of more luxury, I would say, for them, because there aren't really a lot of areas that I would say are of a massive need on their side of the ball. You can always use more help in the secondary, and well, not in the secondary. You can always help in the secondary, of course, in Baltimore, because they always get hurt all the time. But one thing the Ravens did last year, which actually really worked on their side, which they're going to do again with this pick right here, is draft an offensive lineman in round 2 and watch him blossom. Roger Rosengarten was the guy last year who surprised a lot of people. This year, it's going to be Donovan Jackson out of Ohio State. He's the day one starter mold. He's a good player for them. And I think, if you want to keep Lamar upright, give him as much offensive line help as you can get. So, good solid pick for them there. Justin.
That's me.
I was there.
And as great as I think he would be a fit in Detroit, I am actually going to go the other way. And I'm going to continue to bolster this defense because I think that the offense is fine at the moment. Their offensive line has been strong. Their running game has been strong. Let's get in a linebacker. They had some great success drafting linebackers in the second round last year. Actually, in the first round, technically, right? Either way, I'm going to go with Demetrius Knight Jr. out of the University of Southern Carolina.
Thought you were going to go Chris Paul there for a sec.
Chris Paul Jr.?
Chris Paul?
Only if I'm looking to buy insurance.
Cliff ain't on this board.
For the Commanders.
This side is a really harsh critic of Ricky with the D+ grade on Charles Grant.
Again, look at my face and watch how much I care. I don't. So here's my thing. We're going to go corner because they need more defensive help. Siobhan Revel is coming off of an ACL tear. I'm very wary about picking guys who come off of injuries like that. So even though I did it with Kim Winston, I'm a little bit wary of it. But that being said, I like Darian Port out of Iowa State a lot better. He's got excellent track speed, really good measurables with arms, can really pass defend, but can also be a guy who can be your gunner in special teams and can go for punt blocks. I think he had like 5 in his career in college as well. So someone who can really be a game changer on defense and special teams, sign me up. Darian Porter, 100%. Oh God, I am not picking anymore for a very long time.
It's the Justin show here.
Bye-bye.
4 of the next 6 picks belong to him.
So then let's make it quick. This is my last Buffalo pick. And what I'm gonna do is we have a lot of success as a league drafting edge rushers out of Ohio State. So let's do JT Laoa, whatever his name is. 6'5", 269 pounds. I don't want him to be drafted by Buffalo as a Jets fan, but
you accept it's going to happen at this point.
I accept that it's a good pick. And here's where teams like Kansas City make their money, because this is the perfect place for them to start really delving into some talented linemen. How about
I swear to God, if you take my pick from me.
Yeah.
I swear to God, Justin.
Ooh, what were you thinking, Jurg?
I'm not going to say it.
What direction are you going in, man?
You're about to take him.
I might have been. Was he an interior offensive lineman?
I'll tell you after you pick him.
So that's a yes. That's a yes. All right. Was he an SEC school?
Maybe.
Huh?
Huh?
I'm gonna go Seth McLaughlin out of Ohio State.
Oh, I got to keep my guy. Yes.
Yes, it's a little bit of a reach here, but he's a big-bodied player. He'd be a new center there. Creed Humphreys is good, but I think this is a player that could transition a little bit to guard if they need him. They said he's a little bit back on his toes. He did have injury concern at some point, which is probably why he's also lower down. But I think this could be a good fit.
Oh, I'll make this easy. With the final pick of the second round, I got to keep my guy. Look, the Eagles' offensive line is great. They drafted a successor before. Shout out Cam Jurgens, Beef Jurg. And they're going to continue that here. Lane Johnson is starting to get up there in age. At some point, he's going to choose to call it a career. And the Big Ten Offensive Lineman of the Year, who's 6'6", is available for me in this freaking draft right now. So give me Arante Urseri out of the University of Minnesota with the 64th overall pick. Like I'm going with the fact that the Eagles, I think to me, they already have their 22 starters. It's going to take a special talent in this draft to break that. And 24 technically with their kicker and punter. I think it's going to take a special talent to break that. Just draft some physical beasts and develop. And that's what I went with both of my selections. You get to sit these kids for a year, maybe two, help them work on their technique, help them develop, and they're going to be long-term starters on this team. You replenish the cupboards consistently. That's what great teams do. That's what amazing GMs do, and that's what champions do. And that's what I have the Philadelphia Eagles doing with both my selections I've made, but especially the Urseri pick. I was scared that you were going to pick up for Kansas City. I was going to be really pissed.
I thought about it. He was on my radar. In fact, I saved him because I was hoping that he was going to be here for this pick.
Not anymore.
And so instead, I will go with Ozzy Trapilo. 6'7", 309 pounds. I'm sorry, 6'8", 309 pounds. Redshirt senior, out of Boston College. The Giants need to fix that offensive line. Really, the only starter there that is solid is Andrew Thomas. Let's get the bookends settled, and we'll move forward. Now, am I up again? Kansas City again? Son of a... Okay. All right. Let's take the chance here, I guess, now, right? I mean, this is a good spot for you to take a chance on a big...
Jalen Miller?
Big-time receiver. And let's do Jackson Beck out of TCU. 215 pounds, can do a lot of things right. I think his biggest issue is going to be experience and or injury concern because he didn't spend a ton of time on the field, unfortunately. Let's bring him in here. Let's see what he could do for Kansas City.
I do not blame you at all. All right. I picked one LSU tackle before. I'm going to go with another. I technically speaking, I picked both a Texas and an LSU tackle here, right? So I could go with either one. But give me a guy in Emory Jones Jr. who going to the Cleveland Browns here it's a team that necessarily like you may not think of it, but I think tackle is a low-key need for this team. Jack Conklin's getting a little bit up there in age, right? It was a couple years ago when they signed him to be a part of the future of this team, and now we're a couple years in. DeJuan Jones as the other tackle. I don't know. Like, he's still young, so I don't want to necessarily close the book off on him. So maybe he's going to be a long-term piece of the future there. Maybe he sticks at the left tackle spot. Maybe he goes to right tackle. But Emory Jones, like, he would be the considered. I mean, I know this is a fairly obvious statement to say, but if not for his teammate, he would be the highly touted LSU prospect coming out here. A couple all SEC team selections at the right tackle spot. Kid's extremely talented, broad chest, great in terms of his hands. He's really strong when it comes to his hands. I think that's a big thing. Lateral quickness, everything you want. He's going to be starting the right tackle in the future for the Cleveland Browns. Emory Jones Jr. at least. Now it's a little bit back and forth now between you and I, Justin. Now we got your Raiders pick next, which you've been hitting on their selection so far, and then I think it's the last Patriots pick of this draft for me as well. So we've got a couple last picks for these teams here, Justin. Last chances we get to make some impact, and there's actually another Patriots pick after this, so I'm slightly wrong. What do we got here?
What do we got indeed, Jurg?
Jalen Milroe.
Disembodied voice from a distant future, as the Podfather is going to have 3 picks in a row here soon, so he better get his butt back in the studio.
Playoffs.
How about Shannon Revelle from, excuse me, from East Carolina?
Another
Tall,
A selection.
thin cornerback. I think that he'll help address a need there as well. And those are the 2 things that I think are important for a Pete Carroll team. Good running game, which we addressed with the running back and an offensive lineman, and some solid secondary play. That's how he won a Super Bowl. I'm not saying that they're going to win a Super Bowl now that I picked for them, but, I can't say that they haven't. I think one of my teams has won the Super Bowl every year. It's helped the Chiefs every year.
That's true. When we give you the Chiefs every single year, you got a pretty good shot there, Dustin, to say the very least. Look, give me a guy who, for this Patriots pick here, I avoided receiver at first. Now let's add a receiver here. Let's go with a guy. He's able to change speeds. He's able to really go up against coverage as well. He's got a good combination of size and speed here. I think he's about 6'3" give or take. Had some really good seasons at Ole Miss. He's actually 3 straight good seasons in a row to finish his career, because I think he's at Louisiana Tech before you end up transferring to Ole Miss. Give me Trey Harris out of the wide receiver out of Mississippi. Like, good, talented. I think he's got that blend of size and speed that you want. That like, for me, the reason why I didn't go McMillan is because I know he's got the size. He's kind of one of those guys where I'm a little bit like, I'm not that I don't think he'll be a good player, but to draft him as highly as he's being projected to go, at least like in a mock like this, I was kind of very iffy on picking him so high up for the Patriots. Whereas I think I'm getting a guy in Trey Harris. He's not as big. And I will say McMillan easily has the better catch radius comparatively. I still think Harris can be that go up and get a guy. He's like 6'2.5", 6'3". Kid's going to be able to go up and get it for some of the deep balls that Drake May is going to want to throw here. I think it's a good pick. So Trey Harris for me. All right, we have the Jags, the Saints, and the Bears before it's back to you and me, Justin. So the run of Rick is here.
What?
Yeah,
what?
Mueller, welcome back.
What?
You got 3 picks here.
What?
What? Shot of whiskey. What? Vodka. What?
Bourbon. What?
What? Steve Weiser. What?
So I thought at some point that maybe the Jaguars had done something stupid, which is par for the course.
Give it time.
Evan Engram's no longer a part of this team, so they need a tight end. And why not stick with a guy who played his ball in the same state?
Oh,
give me Elijah Arroyo out of Miami here at the 70th overall pick for them. Could be a nice piece. I mean, they've got Johnny Munt and Brenton Strange, so they could have a little bit extra there. So why not go for something a little bit, fun, a little bit different there? I think that's a good shot for them.
Mm-hmm.
The Saints, I'm going to use the Saints pick to do something a little different and to highlight a player who is going to be not that high up on your list. Another guy who's a little lower, very low as a matter of fact.
Give me the position now so I can start scrolling.
Well, I gotta find the position where he is according to what the mock draft database has him at. Just give me one moment here. Where is this guy? Because he's on the other site that I have, but he's not there. Anywho's, you know what? We'll go with this guy instead. Edge.
Okay.
Go with this guy instead.
How far do I gotta scroll?
I'll tell you. I'll tell you in just a second. Wait, is he down here somewhere, or did they not put him down there?
Well, let's be real. You're going to go with David Walker out of Central Arkansas, aren't you?
Because the guy that I can't find is not there. So, I'm gonna do one more pass around. Just hold off on that pick for a second there.
Okay.
Because the Saints, they have a little bit more of a luxury here because they got another pick in this round, so they do have the ability to shuffle around and do a few things here. So I don't know why this guy's not on their list there, but yeah, we'll go David Walker out of Central Arkansas here. The guy
I was joking.
The guy that I was going to pick for New Orleans in this one, can't seem to find him. Don't know where he is. But I'll tell you a little more about his story just so you have a little bit of background. Ahmed Hassanain, who's a linebacker edge out of Boise State, will become the first NFL prospect from Cairo, Egypt.
Oh.
Was basically a refugee and made his way over to Boise and became a really good player for them over there. So I think it's a good, solid guy to look at, for it's like an undrafted free agent potential here and there.
How deep does this go?
Apparently, it goes a lot deeper, not deep enough. 72, though, we'll go back up to the very top with this one because last year I picked Tommy Eichenberg to go in the third round, and this year I'm going to pick one of his fellow teammates on the edge. I think it was edge or linebacker. There he is, Jack Sawyer out of Ohio State. Great leader, really good player, solid. Overall grades out real well. He can really be good pass rushing, but he also is really good ball rushing. So I think he's going to add a lot to that Bears defense. And, keep the local kid local.
Keep the local kid local. I like the cut of your jib there, Rick. Justin, I got to ask you. I want to get the pulse of the fan base here. Let's say this is the Jets' real life draft. You go tight end with your first selection with Warren. You go with a edge guy. Maybe it's Williams. Maybe it's someone else. What would you be looking at? Because I'm trying to think. Are you confident in the options that are opposite of Sauce Gardner right now? Because I'm leaning a little bit towards corner, even though I know there's not necessarily anybody that jumps out to you here. There is a guy I like here, but I think it's definitely be a reach at this point. I don't know. What would you think if the Jets were in this position right now?
If I were the Jets in this position, right at this moment, I would probably sell the team to someone else. No, I like.
When am I going to get a serious answer out of you? I feel like it's been like 3 months since you've actually answered a question about the Jets.
You don't understand. I've never given up on a team before. I've given up on this team ever being good. They've really screwed the pooch. I've never had more faith in a team, and I've never been let down so hard.
Pick me. I think I have a good answer.
Rick.
I think the answer. I think they could use Alfred Collins, the D lineman out of Texas here. I think he's a long, lanky lineman who's very strong on the interior, who could be a real nice fit for them. It's a lot better than I would have said Jalen Milroe here, obviously. But I think, I do think secondary help they do need, but I also think, you added Michael Williams on the edge. Why not continue to add up and beef up that defensive interior, especially with the rest of this division being as good as it is? So that'd be my 2 cents on it. But I know you're probably going to pick the kicker out of Miami, Borregales.
How did you know? No, I'm gonna go. I think Sauce Gardner needs a guy outside from him. I'm gonna go with a guy who he has good poise, good with route recognition, and he added a little bit of muscle. This is a big thing for him in his collegiate career. He added muscle before going into this most recent year for him. Continuously was a honorary mention for his all-conference team, but just kept missing out because of the talent in the conference. But give me Jacob Parrish out of Kansas State here, top available corner. He's one of these underrated guys. I know I spoke pretty about the kid from Kentucky earlier that I selected, and the FSU boy as well that I picked for the Niners and Bucks before. But I think Parrish is actually even a pretty good pick, relatively speaking. He's had decent success in his career. He's not gotten the media attention because he's always been like that close to all conference teams. But I mean, he's 5'10", about 200 pounds. He's I think a solid player to be opposite of Sauce Gardner. Sauce Gardner, we know, shuts down a whole side of the field. Now you need that guy to be that reliable second next to him. I think Parrish has a chance to be that. So the Carolina Panthers on the clock.
Who are they ever?
Well, you've gone edge with them. You've gone wide receiver with them, Justin.
Yes.
So that's according and going by the database as well. Like just going on what it says as needs. There's corner to still pick. There's tight end. There's tackle. There's running back. If only Cam Scatabo was still on the board for you to pick him, but you got picked pretty good.
Well, that's where I would go here, but no. Instead, I'm gonna go with something that I don't necessarily think is an immediate need for this team because they're solid in the secondary. But let's get a safety out here, and let's go with Andrew Makuba out of Texas.
I dig that. To say the least. Look, one of the reasons why Oregon was really good in their first season in the Big Ten is because their defense had to step up. We picked an offensive lineman from Oregon. We picked a defensive lineman from Oregon. Heck, let's continue it with the Ducks. There's some really good picks on this team. Give me Jordan Birch to be on the squad. Bit of a winning pedigree that he helped develop in Oregon in his last year there, and the San Francisco 49ers. Again, this team, despite how good they are, I think this offseason, when you really start to key in on it, they need a lot. They need to surround their team with a lot more young talent than we thought. And I think especially that defensive side of the ball needs the support. Give me Birch out of Oregon. The Ducks are flying tonight. Quack, quack, quack.
I just registered here. I think I know which way I would like to go with my Cowboys pick, but I want to make sure I have the right players on.
And real quick, before you do, give you a little bit of time here, Justin. Rick, what did I say before? The trenches are deep in this draft class, right? Like, like all of us have gone to offensive and defensive line on a number of occasions. Like this draft is the perfect draft to build the trenches of your team. I know it might be confusing for you because you went Cam Scatterbo. We know you're going to pick Jalen Milroe here in the coming selections. I picked Cam Ward, but we've all keyed in on the
I was going to ask though, who was Dak's backup in Dallas?
The kid they got recently from the Pats, Milton.
Yeah, well, could get some competition. I hear Riley Leonard's pretty good in town. Never know.
Yeah, Dylan Gabriel maybe.
DJ Uyagale, and all his 94 interceptions.
Is he even on this draft board?
Oh yeah, I'm sure he is. All the way down.
Keep going.
He's there. He is.
Dude, what a fall from grace. Holy hell.
I like the fact that he's behind a guy from Wilfrid Laurier. Is that a college in Canada?
I love the fact that a West Virginia quarterback is also above him. Like, when was the last time since Pat White that a West Virginia quarterback was like drafted? Actually, Geno Smith. I answered that question.
There you go. Future Ring of Honor candidate.
Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
All right, Justin, we've BS'd around a little bit. Enough. Save the show.
What do the Cowboys need to return to what they were? I mean, we addressed the offensive line.
The new owner.
We addressed the defensive line. What'd you say?
The new owner.
Maybe. Well, the question is, everyone keeps asking, why does Jerry Jones not go after a running back?
There you go.
And I mean, he did with Javonte Williams, which I think is a very good signing. But let's go with some guy that has 3 back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons in a talent. They have had real success with guys that have had multiple double-digit touchdown seasons coming out of college. Guys specifically from Ohio State.
Yeah.
Let's go with Quinshon Judkins here.
It's a good pick.
To save the Cowboys.
An A plus for your selections there, Justin. Bravo. Good stuff.
I am available for hire for any NFL teams that take NFL mock draft database very seriously.
Look, the best available guard is still there. The Patriots, they did some shuffling around on the team. Let's get multiple offensive linemen here in the future. Give me Jonah Savenai. Out of
Jonah S.
Yeah, Jonah S. Out of the University of Arizona. Highly touted. I love the kid coming out. I think he's got great leverage. I think he's a fantastic blocker, especially supporting the run. The Patriots, if they're going to support Drake May, I think what they're going to have to do is you're going to have to hope that the running game can make a little bit more of an impact. I think there are decent running backs on the roster. I think the offensive line is the key to that team stepping up. And I think why not beef it up a little bit, a couple offensive line selections here in this mock draft for myself, for them. And let's keep it going, baby. Let's keep that train going. All right, the Arizona Cardinals and the Houston Texans. I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is back-to-back Podfather picks.
Isaiah Bond out of Texas. World-class speed. 5'11", can really break things open. You pair him with Kyler, that's a high dynamic Arizona offense, I think. So that was an easy one to go there for me. Now with Houston, it gets interesting. Again, they have 2 picks in the next 10, so we can get a little funky if we wanted to with this pick. I said if we wanted to. I don't know if we want to or not, but if we wanted to. And let's see. Should we? Maybe we'll break some hearts here. But let's add one more piece to that offensive line. Let's add a young, solid interior offensive lineman. Give me Tate Ratledge out of Georgia here at 79. Yeah. He falls far. I think this was the pick that they got for the Tunsil trade, I believe.
I think so.
3-year starter right guard for Georgia. Clearly not one of the guys who was in the cars. But, let's build that lineup even further to protect Stroud even more.
Right. Justin, the Colts, and again, you've gone on the defensive side of things so far. This is a team that is trying to rebuild the defensive side, to be fair. They did lose an offensive lineman in free agency. One of the guys that they developed, Frears, I think is how his last name was said. He was signed by the Vikings in free agency to a very nice big contract. So what are we thinking here, Justin? Are we going to bring back a interior offensive lineman to get into the mix here? Are we going to continue on the defense? Do we need skill position? What is the pulse of the Colts for this their last pick of this mock draft? Because this is of course our 3-round mock, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, it is. What is the pulse of the Colts, and where do we go from here? Because it's a team that has a lot of question marks. It wasn't me, guys. So where I think I'm gonna go, just double check to make sure I don't want to go this direction. The Colts have me a little stumped here because I feel like a lot of the positions they need aren't the positions that are readily available. I mean, we already addressed some of them. How about, I'll stick with my gut. And I'll go with Oluwafemi Oladejo out of UCLA. 7 sacks, 7 hits, 19 hurries this year. Just some depth. They could use the edge.
Indeed. I've gone defense so far with the Bengals early. I think they do need to focus on that, but it also doesn't mean that they get to ignore the offensive line. And the guy that I want is there. I always love it when the guy that I want is still there for me. Marcus Mbow out of Purdue. Look, man, Big Ten offensive linemen, if there's one thing they could do, they could block for the running game. And while we make a big thing of the offensive success, and yes, protecting Joe Burrow, job numero uno, Mr. Mbow, but helping there be a balance for the rushing attack, which the rushing attack brings back Najee P. Ryan, still have Zach Moss. Why is his name escaping me? The guy that kind of broke out for them a little bit last year. In the backfield. What is his freaking name?
Chase Brown?
Yes, Chase Brown. I'm like, who the hell? Brown, Moss, and P. Ryan is a solid backfield. You need the offensive line to block a little bit for them. Marcus Mbow, kid out of Purdue, knows how to block. knows how to block, man. Just Big Ten offensive lineman. I got a lot of faith in them, especially I feel like in this draft class. So give me the kid, and you're gonna get an important job early. Block for Joe Burrow. It's big expectations for a 3rd-round pick, to say the least. But I think the kid, I think he can handle it. I think he is a very talented, very technically sound a guard. So to get him in the 3rd round, I'm very happy about that. All right, Justin, we have the Seahawks. Their 4th or 5th selections. If I didn't say it in one of the earlier picks, the Seahawks have the most amount of picks in the first 3 rounds of this class because, of course, ladies and gentlemen, this is our traditional #SAOC 3-round mock for all of you. So, Justin, what are we thinking for Seattle?
I think Seattle at this point has kind of a luxury to go in whichever direction they want. We've addressed some of the needs pretty heavily. There's not a ton of offensive linemen that I think I would reach for at this point. I don't have a ton of them high up on my board. So what I would do is I would go with a depth piece here. The question is, do you draft 3 edge rushers in a row?
This is one of the blights on Justin's resume. He has the Seahawks monster.
Is an F incoming?
Seriously.
I'm gonna go with a tight end here.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with the big-bodied Terrence Ferguson, who's an excellent pass-catching tight end out of Oregon.
The Oregon Trail. Podfather, we made the Jackson Dart. Probably the pick we spent the most time discussing earlier, actually, in this draft. The first round selection of Jackson Dart to the Pittsburgh Steelers. What do we got here? Do we need to add more to the O-line to protect Dart? Do we want to give him a weapon that doesn't lose their mind after a couple seasons? Do we want to beef up the defense? What are we thinking here? We know we're not going to go kicker because shout out to Chris Boswell, a fantasy MVP to me.
Well, notice that Jackson Dart got an A. So how about we add an A+ pick for this one? And remember what I said earlier? I said, possible Jalen Warren, possible Kenneth Gainwell. Well, how about a guy who ran 1,500 plus yards last year and 21 touchdowns? Caleb Johnson out of Iowa, please. And thank you.
Yep, A+. You hit the nail on the head.
Yep.
And I love the fact that Rick, if there's one thing that the three of us have known, because all three of us studied media and have worked in media, it's to not fall for the media hubbub that the Steelers are trying to say that they're confident in their running back room. That team is not confident in their running back room, shape, or form. They're going to go with a running back at least.
Yeah. And the thing is, too, that like the tackles that are left on the board, that they're not rated that highly for what I'm looking at. Cameron Williams was like at this pick, but Caleb, the value of getting Caleb Johnson that low is what makes it really good, too.
So I have the options here for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I mentioned wide receiver earlier that I felt that the depth chart there was pretty set. But as I am educated enough to go back and confirm. And while I do think the top of the depth chart is set, I think there's space in the depth chart to carve out a little bit of a role, especially for a young player coming in. And I think for me, what I want to get in this Tampa Bay Buccaneers receiving room in particular is a guy who I think will be I feel like, relatively speaking, I like consistency when it comes to the majority of my picks, right? I want to pick a guy that relative consistency, and even if he may have only had one kind of breakout season for himself, or even no. I've been against guys like Kadarius Toney who only came out with 1 year. A guy who may have had multiple years in college where the stats aren't eye-popping for you, but you kind of like what you see. This kid's big, he's physical. I want to see what role they would bring for him, but you get to learn under Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. I'm sure they're going to find a role for a kid as big and talented as Savion Williams out of TCU with this pick here. Rick, you mentioned it before, you can't teach height. You can't teach 6'5" at over 220 pounds either, listed. So it's pretty good. Denver and the Chargers. So AFC West teams here, and we got back and forth Justin and then the Chargers. Justin, they're not feeling your picks in this Broncos draft. This is, I would probably say, it's maybe your worst draft grade of what we've done so far.
They don't have to feel it. Not everyone could be correct all the time, and their grades are incorrect there. So, Rick, did you watch a lot of Chappelle Show back in the day?
I did, yes.
You remember the sketch where he was doing Making the Band, and he was Diddy, and he was also that other character? And he was
I remember that.
Hottest in the game, and it's probably pronounced a little differently, but he said it's Dylon, 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 Dylon. And that being said, it's probably Dylan, but I'm going to go with Dylan Sampson out of Tennessee. Another strong weapon out of the draft for one. Not McVay. Not McVay. Sean Payton.
Confusing the Sean's here.
He also likes weapons too. That's why I got confused.
Yep. That's true.
But I think that's an excellent fit for them there.
Well, there's nothing like taking the Chargers here, and all my love for Jim Harbaugh, lack thereof, and seeing how well I did on the first two, and giving him a D+ grade here. But there's a guy as a receiver that I'm looking at that I'm going to pick for them at 85, who's a stash guy, who was one of the best receivers in college that you never heard of because he played at a very small school. But he had almost 1,400 yards receiving last year and 15 touchdowns.
Oh, I know who you're going with.
Do you?
I think so.
What's his name? With?
Nick Nash, right?
Nick Nash out of San Jose State. Yep, I'm going to go with him. Because they've got a bunch of other options there, but Nick Nash is a really good stash guy and a guy who can probably make his way onto this team. And again, what the Chargers need more is to give Herbert more weapons. So why not have one of the best, one of the most prolific receivers in college football in the last few years be on that team?
The Green Bay Packers. I mean, where do I even go at this point with this team? Do we try to go with another Utah State wide receiver when the one a couple years back and Romeo Dubes hasn't necessarily worked out? It lists the offensive tackle as in need. I kind of have to disagree with that, just from the perspective that I think I mentioned it last week when we did our draft look back. I think Morgan is kind of in a prime position there to take the role, and I think if not him, Zach Tom and Rasheed Walker kind of fit the bill. And I think at this point, especially, I'm not seeing a guy like. I'm not saying Cameron Williams and Anthony Belton are nice selections here, but I don't know if I necessarily like.
Can I tell you another position that I've seen that's a need as well, and another mock?
Sure.
Edge. And it's a really good guy out of Ole Miss that I think is
true.
Is 6'6".
Yep. That's our guy right there, isn't he?
Yep.
Jared Ivey. He is a pretty good player out of Ole Miss, to say the very least. And honestly, I've gone what, 2 Ole Miss guys so far in this draft?
I mean, I got a bunch.
Yeah, I mean, let's keep the Ole Miss train going. Jared Ivey out of Ole Miss. B selection there, and a developmental guy. Like I look at the Packers, it's one of these things that you kind of scratch your head a little bit as to why they're not as great on the pass rush as you think they should be. You got a Lucas Van Ness there. Kenny Clark can pitch in for some sacks. Rashawn Gary. Edgerrin Cooper had a pretty solid rookie season for himself last season, right? I mean, just 3.5 sacks doesn't right home about more of his all around. He's not just strictly a pass rusher. So I do, well, not just argument. They do need a little bit more pass rush there. See if the kid out of Ole Miss can provide it for him a little bit. So there's that. Let's scroll back up to see. Oh, look at that. We have a couple AFC South teams here. Podfather. The AFC South has kind of been your division, Rick, for the most part. You got having half the division under your 3/4 of the division with your jurisdiction because of the Titans pick. So the Rick division, AFC South, back-to-back picks. What are we doing?
I'd say so. Oh, this is gonna be funny. This is a pick that I think you kind of just throw away. And so if you're thinking about Liam Cohen and you're thinking about how he started that press conference, Duval. Well, you 6 sons of guns, we got Milroe.
No, you're not. Are you?
I am. Yes, I am. Jalen Milroe, 3rd round pick here to Jacksonville.
You knew it.
But let me tell you why. Who is Trevor Lawrence's main competition right now? Zach Wilson.
I was about to say.
That's it. And if Trevor Lawrence isn't fully back to where he should be, then if you can try and mold a guy in Milroe who Liam Cohen has seen, remember he was at Kentucky for a couple of years, so he's seen Jalen Milroe play, try and mold him, try and make him a better quarterback. And the value here is good. The value here is very, very good. So I think it would work out well in their favor to draft him in here at this pick. So I go for it. 89 for Houston. I'm going to pick another lower tier pick. I think this one's going to get me a C, but that's okay. I don't mind it. One of the best college running backs of the past few years, didn't have a great 2024 campaign, but is still a guy who I think can give you a lot of yards and maybe be a different change of pace back. Ollie Gordon II out of Oklahoma State is my go here for Houston. They have Joe Mixon obviously still, but This is a guy who last year, 854 yards, but also made 30 catches. The year before, though, 1,700 yards on the ground and 39 catches and 27 total touchdowns. Why not? Why not put him there, stash him, and see what happens?
Speaking of a little bit of a draft and stash, although I think he probably will end up playing a little bit, I probably could save this kid for the 101st pick. Actually, no, I will save him for the 101st pick. I'm pretty confident he'll still be there. So let me actually take a little bit of a reroute.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah, I'm well, now that you say that, knowing you, it's a little bit of a risk. No. You know what? Let me go with the guy who literally broke records for this team. I know they have a starting tight end in Los Angeles with Higbee, but look, yeah, you have Adams and Puka. Let's keep the offense going. Let's go with a guy who is literally breaking records at Bowling Green. Harold Fannin Jr. is an absolute, it's absolutely obnoxious, the kinds of stats he was putting. Literal video game statistics is what he was putting up. The only guy that realistically challenged our buddy out of Penn State for the Mackey Award this season. And he's still pretty young. He's 20 years old. I think he turns 21 this summer. He's good, but MAC MVP, MAC offensive MVP, multiple-time first-team All-MAC, offensive player of the year for the conference, most receiving yards by a tight end in FBS history, most receptions in a season, yards per game. Dude did it all. And most receiving yards in a bowl game by a tight end as well. Like, a bunch of tight end records belong to him. And give this kind of offensive threat to Sean McVay and Matt Stafford to play around with, and Cam Ward's future tight end as well. Thank you very much.
There's an issue that we're skirting over here that's going to be rectified with this 91st pick. And it's not a pretty issue to speak about, unfortunately, but it is an issue that needs to be addressed with the Ravens. And so I'm not going to say what the issue is because you'll know exactly what the issue is when I tell you who I'm picking. And it's going to be my next D-plus grade here, but that's totally fine.
Okay.
And it's very high for this pick, but that's okay. Andres Borregales, the kicker out of Miami.
Woo!
Third round here. Justin Tucker's done, man. Baltimore needs to get a guy in here who can hold up that mantle. And Borregales last year, 18 of 19 on field goals and a perfect 62 for 62 extra points. That's a good guy to have there. Justin Tucker did not have it last year in more ways than one. But
look. Okay. Justin, you got the Seahawks coming up. This is the 5th pick. They gave you a C+ on the Terrence Ferguson pick. So what do we got here, and why are you picking your third edge rusher of this draft?
Yeah, actually, I really wanted to go into the interior line again. I really like Luke Condra out of Cincinnati. You know what? That's what I'll go with. I'm not going to overthink it.
Mm-hmm. Do you,
They need interior line. That's what they're going to get.
all right. Where is...
there we go.
There you go. I'm like, where is he? I could have sworn. Jeez. Started out so well.
They have him ranked real low in that one compared to wherever other places I've seen.
They really do. I mean, well, that's the thing with the draft at the end of the day. Different draft sites, different people, like different analysts. Like I saw, when I was mentioning Rick's guy out of Arizona earlier, McMillan with the 5th overall pick, I saw people were putting him in like the 20s for some mock drafts. So it's like, it's interesting to see where this all ends up. Anyways, Rick, your last Saints pick here. You've gone quarterback of the future. You've gone running back to go alongside. You have edge there. What are we thinking?
Safety.
Okay.
Who would I take here that would make sense for them given of what they just did? Scroll down.
Right up.
Scroll down. Keep going. Keep going.
I think with Rick's
Keep
pick, you want
going.
to start at the bottom.
Keep going.
Right?
Keep going.
It should be an option.
Stop.
Shiloh Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Put
Lordy.
both Sanders boys on the same team. Watch what happens. Make Dion happy.
So basically, Kellen Moore is going to get fired after a year in your universe. And,
Well, I mean,
and
whenever.
Dion is going to take over.
Well, who's his D coordinator? Brandon Staley. You reap what you sow.
Reap what you sow, indeed. All right. Speaking of reaping what you sow, I added. He could help with both the pass rush and the run stopping. Look, I think this guy is also going to be able to do the same. Play a little bit of 3-4 for this team as outside linebacker. Help a little bit with some pass rush. I went with a teammate of his earlier, so let me go with him this time. Not going to let him fall anymore. If the site would stop giving us random ads, and of course I had to start all the way at the bottom because of certain someone making their picks. Give me Josiah Stewart out of Michigan, going to the Cleveland Browns, joining Mason Graham, and joining a defensive line with Myles Garrett. They gotta make more pass rush hell for other teams to say at the very least. All right, Justin, last Chiefs pick.
Yeah, and speaking of falling, I think it's time we stop this other slide as well. This is a player that's highly rated on all of the draft boards I've seen, including this one. He is currently still the best player available. Let's go Tyleik Williams.
A+ selection.
Well, he was projected to go 60 picks ahead, so.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Look, I've gone developmental with my pick so far for this team, and I'm sort of going to do it here, although I think this guy could see a little bit of playing time early. I think as a wide receiver, like, you can always make sure that your core is filled up, and I think for the Philadelphia Eagles, it's not a bad idea in any way, shape, or form to add a guy. You have a championship. The crown is on your head. Let's add a Royal to the royalty, and let's go Jalen Royals out of Utah State. It's a heavy wide receiver room that he's going to have to work his way up. There's Jahan Dotson, of course. We know the top two guys there are Brown and Smith. But eventually in the next 2-3 years, there's going to be turnover. And I think a young receiver drafted by Philly in the 3rd or 4th round this year could become a starter for them in a couple years down the line. All right, the Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota! I could go on a couple different picks here. I still think I'm tempted to go with edge, but I think this team did prove me a little bit wrong. I think they can create some pass rush with the front seven as a whole playing together. So I'm actually going to go I'm going to go a little bit off the board here. At least I think I'm going a little bit off the board with my going around. Actually, I'm going to do something similar to Justin. I've seen him ranked a lot higher in a couple draft boards. I'm going to go with the kid out of Maryland, Jordan Phillips. Physical, tough. They need that. Again, I'm rocking with the Big Ten. And Big Ten, if there's anywhere that a Big Ten lineman is going to fit well, it's a cold weather state, cold weather city, a team that's going to go up against the run in that division. Gibbs, Johnson, Jacobs, Cam Scatterbo after this draft, apparently, if our mock comes true. So you're going to need some interior defensive linemen to help with the rushing attacks in the NFC North. Rick?
Seriously, what do y'all have against Cam Scatterbo, man?
I have nothing against him. It's just funny that you picked him in the top 10.
So I actually made a mistake earlier. I have to correct myself. The Jaguars have John Wolford and Nick Mullins, which basically is like having Zach Wilson as your backup, essentially. So, the Dolphins, on the other hand,
I was going to say, isn't Zach Wilson on the Dolphins?
The Dolphins, on the other hand, only have Zach Wilson backing up Tua until they draft Quinn Ewers at number 98.
Okay.
So, because that's the way they're going to go is Quinn Ewers. I think that's they need another guy. And with that, I think I'm done for the Eagles.
I believe you are, actually. From the rest of the picks, we have the Giants, the Niners, the Rams, and the Lions. So this is between Justin and I. Justin, let's review the picks. Kenneth Brandt, boom pick. Travis Hunter, boom pick. Ozzie Trapillo, boom pick. You could go maybe a young developmental quarterback now to maybe challenge a little bit, or if we assume that the Giants are, like a lot of other teams in the league, planning for Manning, then you have a chance. See, it's hard with the first name Arch to kind of match and rhyme, so I'm going with planning for Manning for the slogan for this next year. So What do you think of that? Anyways, Justin, continue with your pick.
You could say that they're playing like ass for Arch. Anyways,
I'm trying to rhyme.
let's go with some help at wide receiver. And a little smaller guy than I would like, but can't argue with 1,100 yards and 14 touchdowns. Let's go with Kyle Williams out of Washington State.
Fair. More than fair, to say the very least. All right, the San Francisco 49ers. And, I mean, it's ironic that you picked there, Justin, because I am more than going to stay at the wide receiver position. And I'm going to pick a guy, like, I don't know off the top of my head what his role will be in San Francisco, but I know you give Kyle Shanahan a wide receiver and see what he could do with him.
He'll get shot, but that's okay.
Well, this guy Jesus Christ, back-to-back 10 touchdown seasons for him in his collegiate career. Under 1,000 receiving yards this year, over 1,000 the year prior. Probably going to play the slot role more so here, but I still think he could do well, as I think Ricky Pearsall is going to have to play on the outside a lot more, especially with Debo off the team. Someone's going to have to give some support to this team. Good underneath option here is going to be Tez Johnson. And with the 10 touchdowns, maybe a little bit of a threat in regards to being an offensive weapon. As we continue here, it is the Los Angeles Rams selections. I do want to say in this really quick here, because we kind of hot-shotted this, I wasn't necessarily sure when to bring this up in the show, but since we did go back-to-back wide receivers, the show would like to give its condolences to the family of Kyron Lacey, the youngster out of LSU, who unfortunately and tragically passed away literally earlier this week on April 12th, just a couple days ago. I know it wasn't pre-draft, but last year it was the Vikings corner, Kyrie Jackson, if I'm not mistaken, who tragically passed away before. Was it before training camp started, or was it just as training camp had started? I forget.
I think it was before, yeah.
So just you hate to see a guy. I think especially like the three of us are older, but just like anyone within our age range who passes away so suddenly, especially a kid who is going to be projected to go in this draft, probably somewhere in this mock at some point. Very tragic on what happened to him and the situation that unfolded, and you never want to see that happen. So we would like to give our condolences to his family on his passing from a couple days ago. Never an easy spot to really drop that in somewhere, but I felt that was worth mentioning here before we do finish off the draft. Maybe he would have gone to the Rams. Who knows? But instead, with my selection here, and my guy from before is still here. Rick did not pick him earlier, which I'm very happy about. The lengthy kid out of UTSA, Za Frazier. There are veterans on this Rams team right now. He's not going to have to play right away, and I think that's the perfect situation. Let this kid develop, let him look. But he's long, fast, athletic, transitions really well between man and zone. I think he's a great pick. He's projected to be a day 3 pick. I think picking him to the end of round 3 is not a bad one, especially with the compensatory pick. So Za Frazier out of the University of Texas San Antonio Roadrunners. I love it. Justin, the honor of our personal mystery relevant, because, well, we only do 3 rounds and not all 7, belongs to you. My guy, with the Detroit Lions, you gone edge, you gone linebacker. What is this last pick going to be?
Long snapper.
All right.
I was going to go punter, actually.
Okay. James Burnip or Alex Mastromano?
No, you got to go scroll all the way down.
No, Ryan Hansen from Chase
All the way down.
Ross James, Bryce McPherson, Alex Pachetta, Brett Thorson, Tyler Perkins, Ryan Hansen out of JMU is not a bad shout there, Justin. All right, who's the pick?
Okay. How about Xavier Restrepo, University of Miami Hurricane.
And with this selection, our draft results load and load and load. It's taken a while because we did do 3 rounds, to be fair. But with this, ultimately, I will actually very briefly stop the screen appearing.
Man, he's faking our things. Stop the steal.
Terrible.
I'll load it back up here in a couple minutes. But boys, that concludes this year's 3-round mock. What a draft, to say the very least, eh?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And really quick, came back up. So let's look at that. That was a B plus selection for Xavier Restrepo on that, to say the very least. So yeah, a couple good grades there, Justin. There. What about what team do you guys want to go to real quick? Let's pick like 2 or 3 teams. What grades do you want to re-see?
I mean, I'm like I said, I looked through at the ones that I have as well to see how everybody did. So I know that
Gotta. Was that? No, I was gonna make a joke there, but no. Continue.
I mean, let's see who had. I think Justin did great for the Raiders.
Honestly, yeah, I would argue this is arguably the best one right here.
And I think the Cowboys too. I think the Cowboys were good selections by him.
Yeah.
I did love how Jurg, you had a perfect run going for the Niners until your final pick.
I did. What was the B plus? Oh yeah, A plus. Yeah. It was kind of hard. I feel like no matter which receiver I was going to pick there, I don't think I would have even scratched A. I think the Colorado State kid was the other one. I don't think a receiver was going to give me an A there, but I mean, they need a receiver, you know?
Yeah.
So that's it. Yeah. Actually, hit the save option. What does this entail? Because I don't think we saved this last year, so I'm going to hit the save option. I'm going to see what happens in the background for us here. But in the meanwhile, ladies and gentlemen, that just about does it for this year's edition of the hashtag SAOC 3-round mock draft. We appreciate all of you who joined us late this evening, which is few and far in between, but we will appreciate the rest of you who will tune into this and watch it and understand our thoughts going into this upcoming 2025 NFL draft that is happening here in a little under 2 weeks' time. Thank you so much for joining us. One of our staple franchises that we do on this podcast has come to an end. Until next year when we do another 3-round mock, hopefully not in the evening, knowing our schedules. But until next time, thank you all so much for joining us on this week's edition of football and plenty of chaos. Until next time, which I think will probably be a post-draft show, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe one more pre-draft show. We'll determine the timing here soon enough, but we'll either preview the draft a little bit more, or we'll give you our review of a couple picks that were made on the draft days. So thank you all so much, and we'll see you all next time. Bye-bye now.